Welcome back once again to OPC Season 2 as we're about to head into match number 2 of the evening. It is AHQ taking on Hong Kong Attitude.
This is probably one of the biggest matchups of the weekend, all things considered. And that is in among a weekend that has the resolution of these top 4 standings. We just had one of those matches play out in Blank versus Ardian, but make no mistake, this one is going to be massive. And there's 2 reasons for that. The first one is Hong Kong Attitude's record against AHQ. Currently has them with 2 wins, and that is with AHQ actually making top 3 in Season 1 and making playoffs, whereas Hong Kong Attitude did not. So actually AHQ have to overcome Hong Kong Attitude here, despite what was their Season 1 finish. Also, you have Hong Kong Attitude making a very legitimate run for a top 4 finish at the end of this first round robin and bumping AHQ out of that spot.
All right, get some thoughts from both sides before we get into this match.
好，这边先问 HKA， 看了昨天的比赛，有没有什么建议要给 AHQ 呢
？What do you think about AHQ after their performance?
我不知道哎，但是我们会全力以赴。
I'm not too sure, but we're gonna do our best.
好简短，那这边教练有什么话想要对他说吗
？Coach Nito
就全力以赴啊，对。本来想说别队给我们建议好像还不错，但是就对全力以赴吧。
We'll do our best as well, and don't think our losses today is going to impact us today either. So, that is it. CQB from Hong Kong Attitude, Coach Nito from AHQ Esports, and you know, both sides, not a lot of words, a few words exchanged, but essentially, you know, that rivalry does kind of exist here. And there's a second rivalry that Hong Kong Attitude have, and that's with Marchi Esports, and that's kind of separate. But this is an important one because currently, despite Hong Kong Attitude being ahead ahead in terms of a win streak of 2 match wins against AHQ. It's actually 2-2, so AHQ won the first 2 again.
Exactly. In terms of total, you're right. Neither team has the lead in the overall match record. And indeed, tonight, one of the 2 teams will take the match record. But, I mean, again, you have to go back to how that kind of played out, because actually when Hong Kong Attitude were losing to AHQ, the tournament during Season 1 was very stratified at that point. It went, actually, at the time it happened, it went Blank, Flashwolves, AHQ the first time Hong Kong Attitude lost to them. Second time around was in AHQ's undefeated round robin, in the second round robin. So they were actually looking like top dog at that particular time. To go from that to immediately losing twice against Hong Kong Attitude and barely retaining their top 3 spot because of it is actually quite a significant shakeup. So that's what Hong Kong Attitude carry into this. It's one that AHQ need to win, if only for the psychological blow, right? To say, we've come back in Season 2, we have improved, it's not going to happen to us again, and we are going to have that top 4 spot and deserve it.
Absolutely, and both teams have had some change-ups to this roster now. When we look at AHQ's lineup, Cowman and Eric N from the, Cowman and Eddie Boss have dropped out. Rapid has joined the team. You look at Hong Kong Attitude, everybody is the same, but you have Randy now as a flex tank on the roster, and Holiday Cow, otherwise known as Jin Cow from Season 1, taking a step back onto the bench instead. So both teams looking great after these changes.
Yeah, and in that, they did also pick up from Talon Esports, the player Mui. And if that name rings a bell, it's because you saw him in the promotion relegation tournament.
Or in the World Cup.
Yeah, in the World Cup as well, you're quite right. But in said promotion relegation tournament, Talon did fail to qualify. So Hong Kong Attitude kind of got a sweet pickup in that. Much the same as Ardian were kind of able to pick out Republic from Solo Queue Ladder. They kind of got a good pickup, that extra little bit in Mui. And indeed, all of the pickups that these teams have made have kind of pushed them that extra little bit further. The question between these 2 teams is, will AHQ's changes have pushed them far enough to overcome Hong Kong Attitude, or have Hong Kong Attitude's changes kept them ahead of the game?
And the thing to take note about AHQ is, what were the weaknesses from Season 1? They wanted to get a strong tracer play. They have that now. His name is Rapid. He also plays the Doomfist. When you look at the side of Hong Kong Attitude, they already have a strong tracer play. It's one of my favorites in the tournament, what I think is probably one of the best tracers, and that's Shia Lin. So Rapid versus Shia Lin, that's going to be the 1v1 I'm really looking out for. And of course, Mui coming onto the roster as well. What's he going to do against this AHQ side? And by the way, to jog your memories, Hong Kong Attitude already beat Blank, so this is a team also on its own win streak.
Exactly. So there's an interesting metric there, just by the way, because AHQ hasn't actually played Blank yet. But certainly if Hong Kong Attitude were to beat Blank and then pick up this win, I mean, it's pretty clear that they would deserve a top 4 spot in general. then sustaining that across the second round robin and making it into playoffs is a different story, but this is a team on the cusp of being able to do that, which would, in a way, actually be the final payoff of what started halfway through season 1, with them starting to go on this real hot streak. In fact, nearly had an undefeated round robin of their own, had it not been for finally losing to Flash Wolves in what was a very grueling series right at the end of the final round robin of the tournament. So, unfortunately for Hong Kong Attitude at the time, that couldn't be reflected in the standings. It wasn't enough wins to actually change their ultimate position and make top 3. But now they have that opportunity again with the scores being reset for Season 2. They want to take advantage of that.
Exactly, and this is a team that I now want to sort of see how far they can go, but something that we're sort of seeing towards the first 2 weeks of gameplay is something I like to call the Hong Kong Attitude roller coaster, because you don't actually really know exactly where this team sits, because, you know...
That series against Flash Wolves.
But if I sort of go back on their history, you know, they beat Blank 3-0, by the way, that was the match score, but they've also lost to... They had a really close game, Flash Wolves as well, 3-2. Was that scoreline. By the way, the map being picked is Ilios from AHQ side, but then also Hong Kong Attitude have had a couple losses. They lost to Mega Thunder 0-3. They also lost to Ardian 0-3, which is probably a little bit more predictable, but you don't quite know exactly how this team is going to perform.
What they also had was an incredible 5-game series against Flash Wolves earlier in the tournament, one that felt like they could have been on the cusp of winning, and then suddenly disaster would strike, and it was probably a microcosm of their inconsistency. But in any case, that map pick going through being Ilios, and AHQ have the home side for this matchup, getting the picks 1, 3, and 5 there. So we'll also be able to pick the Assault, and then if we get that far, we'll pick the second hybrid, Hong Kong Attitude. We'll be able to pick the first hybrid, and also the Escort, that is maps 2 and 4 in this best of 5. And I said in there, if it goes to a 5th hybrid there, or rather 5th game, 2nd hybrid, I kind of expect this to at least have the potential to go to a full 5 games between these two teams. And if it doesn't, it feels like it'll be because it was a 3-1 either way.
And I'm expecting a longer series here as well, because both these teams are very competitive against each other. Both teams coming in with improvements now from Season 1. And you look at a team like Hong Kong Attitude as well, and you do have to remember that that 5-map series against Flash Wolves, like you sort of mentioned, because to me, this is going to end 2 ways. Either AHQ have a blow-up 3-1 or 3-0 against Hong Kong Attitude, or it's going to be a 3-2 victory for Hong Kong Attitude on the other side, where, if you do remember that last matchup we saw Hong Kong Attitude against Flash Wolves, the ones that Hong Kong Attitude won, they look good. The ones that Flash Wolves won, they look good as well, and Hong Kong Attitude looking much worse. So that's kind of where the roller coaster starts coming into effect.
Certainly, neither of these teams want to walk away with an 0-3 result. Certainly on the defeating side. I mean, the team that 3-0s would be pretty happy with it, but you would not want to be completely swept out by your opponent in this matchup for either of these teams, because of what that would say in terms of that kind of long-term rivalry that we've been kind of talking about so far. I mean, Hong Kong Attitude, in a strange way, are still the team with something to prove, because they never quite got above AHQ in the standings, but this here today is their first real opportunity to do just that.
Exactly. I think, you know, you've kind of said it there. They feel like the underdogs, despite a good record against AHQ, despite having the current streak in wins against AHQs, you still have to kind of favor AHQ, at least from a historical standpoint, from a statistical standpoint. You look at AHQ, 3rd place team from Season 1. You look at Hong Kong Attitude, they couldn't break that. Now might be the opportunity.
This is interesting out the gate. Dizzy is going to be opting on to the Pharah with a Mercy in the pocket. A little bit different, but Mui on one of his best picks in the McCree. So certainly Dizzy will have his work cut out for him in this kind of
And Mui's going to have his work cut out for him as well. It's going to be a battle between these DPSs to see who really gets the advantage. And so far, I think Dizzy has the positional advantage at least.
Yeah, certainly Mui not quite set up as he wants to be, but no one's gone down just yet, so now they can start to get into that position. But oh dear, Mango Jai bumped off the edge by He and Mui dying as they wheel around to get to the point. They try to do the classic counter to Pharah, and that is get out of her line of sight by gunning for the point, but in that movement, Dizzy was too well set up, and they just completely shut out the opening fight.
And that was a very convincing win for AHQ Esports as well, because it is Dizzy versus Mui here in terms of hit scan versus the Pharah. And what happened is Mui got stuck inside this house. He never had position, and you got to credit the tanks. Eric kept them locked up. Eric and he both made sure that he couldn't contest Dizzy at all. But now maybe the sightlines have in fact opened up.
This is a little bit different, yeah, and part of that is just how Dizzy has the position. He can't actually be too far forward. But now the rest of these members, notably he's doing a good job keeping Mui at bay. Good Rocket Barrage will take a ting, but there's the counter trade that they've been looking for, and that Rocket Barrage didn't find much more than that. Quick tempo res to keep Eric in the fight should just tip the balance again in favor of AHQ, and indeed, as they follow up on Randy, that is how it is going to play out. AHQ are going to hold on to the point.
And we're seeing these res kind of plays that you thought you were going to see from AHQ in their previous performance against Ardiad, and now Crappy onto the Mercy again. This is something AHQ definitely like to do. We haven't seen this amount of Mercy come out from any team except AHQ.
Yeah, they're really favoring it right now. Maybe he just wants to get his time in before the Mercy changes come through. But at any rate, continuing this kind of aerial superiority, Mui has actually really struggled to get Pixie on either Dizzy or Crappy despite that hit scan. It's going to be the Transcendence now from Mango Jai to try and get them into position. They do have a Deadeye available, but getting zoned out, nearly closing out on He actually does get it, but they lose CQB in among that. That was one of their defensive ultimates, and now losing Mango Jai as well. Mui unable to affect this fight at all, and Dizzy maintaining this aerial superiority. Hong Kong Attitude, they get a cap in among that chaos there, but this is an AHQ fight win, and they will be able to get the point straight back off Hong Kong.
And the problem is Hong Kong Attitude had a timing window there. They had to get the kills before Crappy gets another res, because now these next picks don't really count unless it's actually onto Crappy himself before the res. And actually you have tools against a Pharmacy combo. You have a Deadeye. Randy had a self-destruct, but that's gone now.
They're fighting it out. They want to really buy the time. That was huge for them. Mui actually had enough damage to kill Crappy, but the invulnerability from the res saved his life, and then the kill went out of Hong Kong Attitude. Actually did a good job of extending the time they had to try and turn it back around, but because of the res, because of the tools AHQ had, and because of how AHQ shut down the movement in from Hong Kong Attitude, it's never quite come to fruition. Now what they have done is got themselves more time on the point, but it's also just kind of been a very protracted fight loss.
Absolutely, even the 1v1 in the background as well. AHQ get this next cap on through. So the only sort of saving grace for Hong Kong Attitude is the fact that they managed to sneak in a cap when AHQ weren't paying attention. But the same problem now persists. Mui goes down, you don't have the ultimates to deal with Pharmacy anymore. If you can get the kills before Crappy gets his next res, that is once again the window Hong Kong Attitude have to work with.
Self-destruct on the point from Randy to try and create some space for them, but already loses the mech the moment he gets back in it, and they are completely tankless here. It's looking like it's going to be a 100, not quite to 0. Hong Kong Attitude are really dragging this one out as much as they can, but the Rocket Barrage seals the deal for AHQ Esports Club, picking themselves up the first map win on Ilios.
And this is Hong Kong, or rather this is AHQ reminding you actually there's a lot of flexibility in this team. You actually think about Dizzy as a permanent hit scan play. He only plays hit scan. He's on the McCree, he's on the Soldier, maybe he plays a bit of Tracer, then suddenly he throws a curveball and out comes the fire. This is a projectile pick that you forget that he actually has in the back pocket because you haven't seen it for about 2 months.
It's like the projectiliest projectile pick as well. So you actually raise a very valid point there. By the way, they had the exact right picks there in having the McCree out of Mui.
Is he actually playing Genji? Wow, he's...
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
He's like, I can do more than just...
No, he had...
That would have been... Yeah.
He's like, I can play fire.
This is...
Guess what else?
This is very close to a mirror matchup. In fact, the only difference is going to be Shylin on the Doomfist instead of the Tracer. This health pack control is going to be very critical.
Yeah, both teams fighting for it. Actually looks like Hong Kong Attitude managed to get in there first.
They haven't quite got the hack on it though. Good sightlines by Mui, but he's just kind of embroiled in a 1v1 against Dizzy. Gets a body shot, now has some decent sightlines to the point, but they don't actually have much ground control. Randy gets pushed out of the mech, that's good follow-up, but they trade off with Dizzy. Mango actually getting that one. That's actually going to give them a bit of health pack control if they want to go ahead and take it. Trying to get some hacks through onto this mech here. The cap has gone over to AHQ, but Hong Kong Attitude are actually in position to kind of pounce here. Mango Jai trying to wrap around the side for that, and Mui on the low ground to get sightlines very tense.
By the way, the first EMP is already online. Here it is. Kerry's dropping
There it goes.
Straight away. Mango Jai's not even close.
That's a really great closeout, to be honest. Absolute maximum leverage from that EMP. Mango Jai did get his up in that time frame, but AHQ had already got the point and then secured that fight win off the back of that EMP, so now have got some good progress.
Yeah, it's like a win-win situation for them. They had the progress already on the objective. That's your #1 priority. And then they had the fight win after that. The first ultimate of the game is always the most impactful, and Kerry's had that one in the bag.
That's an interesting pick onto Eric. That gives Hong Kong Attitude a window. They capitalize with that EMP out already. Sound Barrier does connect, but he gets demech. But they only got Mui in this to do the damage, and he's getting pressured out by the dive now. Mango Jai is kind of the only one left, and Mui's spending a lot of time on low ground. Dizzy able to retreat successfully, even landing damage on a Ting on the backside, and Hong Kong Attitude look like they're going to fall just shy of getting a point cap, even as they close out on Crappy. That is a great pick onto Mango Jai, and it's really just these tanks from Hong Kong Attitude. Shylin only just re-entering the fight, but Rapid's been back in it for a long while now, closing out these kills now, and the Primal Rage looks to seal the deal. Hong Kong Attitude, good fight, but just could not get the conversion.
And it always feels like Hong Kong Attitude are half committed onto Dizzy, half not committed onto Dizzy. You see moments where no one touches Dizzy, and then someone decides, okay, I'm actually going to go for him. They can't actually secure the kill onto Dizzy. So he's had such free aim, free angles, and AHQ have all the space to play with as well. Mui is very restricted in how he can move.
And is often on this low ground as well. Now, because he's on that low ground,
nice.
Oh, that's a great shot onto Rapid. Really quick reflexes there to land that one. And that's actually going to give them a big opening because they have pressured out Dizzy as well. He's had to retreat. There's the EMP to come out from Mango Jai. Keris still has his own, but they capitalize by demaking Hehe before he can self-destruct and pick Keris. That's a great closeout, and this is the conversion that Hong Kong Attitude failed to get last fight. Nice closeout for them as they pick up the last few kills. Rapid may want to come and install that, but I think, yeah, smartly doesn't bother to do so. They already had 99%.
And they just needed those picks. I mean, what a good shot from Mui getting the headshot onto Rapid, and then they were able to commit onto everybody else. The EMP from Mango Jai as well. Everything was just working in Hong Kong Attitude's favor, but it took them a very long time to get to this stage, and they have a much longer road to go to if they actually want to turn this around and win.
And honestly, just one pick from either of these Widowmakers could absolutely decide it right now.
And they haven't picked each other yet, by the way.
Oh, that's a good one onto a Ting, and Randy's already pressured out. They haven't even used the tools they have yet, AHQ, and they're already well ahead in this fight. Randy definitely not going to get back in this mech, and you just kind of wonder where Shaolin is. Dizzy spotted him out kind of on the backside of this fight, but without him in the middle of the fight, they're relying on Mui to do all their damage. He is just one Widowmaker, and meanwhile, the damage is coming out on all sides from AHQ, already getting the regrab for themselves, and they're looking to secure out this fight, and indeed Ilios as a whole with a very similar scoreline to the first map.
And by the way, both supports for Hong Kong Attitude still maintained their ultimates, didn't get a chance to use them. Keris even had an EMP to close out their game if required, but AHQ didn't even need to have that. That felt like, to me, more of a battle of the tanks rather than a battle between Dizzy and Mui, but it is going to be the scoreline 2-0 onto Ilios and 1-0 overall. And I have to speak on the fact that I think the ground play was just much better from AHQ because that is what allows Dizzy to have all the good sightlines on either Pharah or Widowmaker.
This is a really interesting pick as well because this was AHQ's map pick, and that was very, very convincing. This is, if I'm not mistaken, close to the first Ilios we have seen this tournament. In fact, I think it may even be the first Ilios pick we have seen so far this tournament. And the fact that AHQ picked this and then closed it out in the way that they did, with all the extra picks they had in there, like running the pharmacy on Lighthouse and all that, tells me that they have really prepared this one. They have got a plan for this entire matchup, and honestly, it executed pretty much without a hitch there. Hong Kong Attitude are going to have to actually dig deep to turn this one around.
Absolutely, and turn it around, they're going to have to, like you mentioned, 1-0, that scoreline. Ilios being taken out, that was AHQ's map pick, and it does feel like a sleeper map pick, because if you go back to Season 1 finals, in the playoffs, they beat Blank on this map when it was Blank's best map on their best game mode, undefeated on Ilios as well. This was the first time that Blank actually lost Ilios, and AHQ did that.
Yeah, exactly, and I mean, it was an entire shock turnaround, to be sure. If you don't believe me, go back and watch it. But you're kind of right. Sleeper is the way to put it, because actually after that, we never really saw Ilios again. From either Blank or AHQ, excluding the finals. We have not seen that Ilios this season, like I said. So AHQ actually holding on to that all the way up until this matchup was interesting, because they could have pulled it out against Flash Wolves. In any case, let's jump into some replays now. Starting off on Lighthouse. Should
be the AHQ closing this one out as well. I do believe there's a Rocket Barrage that gets a lot of kills here, but you actually see the options from the Hong Kong Attitude side sort of just dissipating. The self-destruct I expected to be used against the Pharmacy in many occasions, but Randy just never really used the self-destruct primarily to take out Dizzy and Crappy, and I think that really affected the team here. And this is just a simple kill, and that's definitely the Rocket Barrage to seal the deal as well.
And you raised an interesting thing about Randy. He got 2 self-destructs off on Lighthouse. Both were inside the Lighthouse itself. And what you kind of do is you zone the enemy team off the point itself, which makes some sense because if you could occupy that space, you force the Pharah to go indoors to get anything done, which is unfavorable for the Pharah. But actually, while they're all outside with the Pharah, you are outside for that moment until you get on the point itself, and that's still Pharah territory. So all you really do is even up the playing field for a moment. You don't actually swing it in your favor entirely, and you're completely right. Never actually used it to zone the Pharah out of the skies so that they could kind of get some more setup with Mui.
And it's not even really zoning because it's a serious threat because Pharah doesn't have a good way to dodge self-destruct. Neither does Pharah and Mercy. Neither of them have good ways to dodge self-destruct. So it's actually a very real threat. And Mui with the Deadeye as well. I expected more Deadeyes to be specifically directed onto the Pharmacy combo. He had the one Deadeye onto Crappy, but not onto Dizzy, and it didn't even kill Crappy because of the res.
Yeah, and that's actually another thing in there because he actually channeled it after the res had gone out. So he did also, he kind of knew that invulnerability would be a factor, but coming into now this replay was the fight that eventually AHQ start to win to get the cap back. It did take quite a while for Hong Kong Attitude to go down here, but there's something I wanted to touch on that I mentioned during the game as well. Shaolin was actually not in this fight for a lot of it. You see him in there now. Excuse me, earlier he had been off kind of on the AHQ side of things, and Dizzy had spotted it as well, so they knew they could safely go, going, okay, they've only got Mui and Mango Jai. So they engaged on the tanks, because what that does is it draws out Shailin's positioning, and it means they can close out on the tanks because there's only that one healer in CQB's Lucio. So it was actually very clever target selection out of AHQ, because often with that Widowmaker you go, let's try and get the squishies, let's try and get picks, but engaging on the tanks instead was absolutely the right call.
And I think Dizzy ended up killing CQB anyway with the sniper rifle. So that was important. CQB had one of the options for Hong Kong Attitude to get themselves back in the game, and that was the sound barrier. Both the support players died with their ultimates. Mango Jai had an EMP he didn't get to use because Rapid took him down. CQB's sound barrier, we already mentioned that one. So it just felt like there were some tools Hong Kong Attitude still had to try and get themselves back in, but just never executed.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely how it played out. This is an interesting pick out of Hong Kong Attitude. Going to go on to Hollywood, which I would say has actually been a very strong map for AHQ in the past. Indeed, is territory you often don't want to take them to. So seems that all the guns are coming out tonight. AHQ picking Ilios and winning it. Very clearly had a plan for that. Hong Kong Attitude, I have to say the same of them based off this Hollywood pick. They too have a plan. Let's see if they can pull it off.
I'm fairly certain we played Hollywood last night, AHQ versus Ardiant, if memory serves correct there. So Hong Kong Attitude, this makes sense to me because they would have done their research on that in particular and really looked at where the holes in AHQ were. So taking that into account, I mean, Ardiant really exposed some things on the AHQ side for this map.
I would agree, but I would also say, as it turned out, that Hollywood was the most competitive between AHQ and Ardiant there. So both of those things kind of end up holding true. They're not necessarily at odds with one another. It is still incredibly strong, this map for AHQ, but you're right. More weaknesses have been exposed by Ardiant. And like I said, Hong Kong Attitude must clearly have a plan here. So I'm now very excited to actually see what it is they're going to be pulling out here, because there's got to be something. Otherwise, you've just kind of walked into AHQ territory.
And I do wonder how much of this battle is still going to be Dizzy and Mui squaring off, because it has been on Ilya so far. The Widow versus Widow we've had, the McCree versus the Fire as well. A lot of those battles, as previously mentioned, has come down to the tanks. Because the tanks open up space for Dizzy, and the tanks on the other side, unfortunately, are not able to, Dizzy gets the better and preferential silence. Now we move into something like this. How much of an impact does that play? And is the Mui versus Dizzy matchup still the one that really determines the result of this game?
Yeah, what we haven't actually seen all that much yet has been the Shaolin Rapid matchup. Yeah. We've seen a bit of both doing some work, but we've actually seen neither of them totally going off just yet. So if anything, so far, the superstars of this game haven't actually been these teams' DPSs, all of whom are incredibly strong in their own right?
I'm going absolutely, and that's why he's been here. That's why you really got to look at the tanks here, because they've been the ones really opening up the plays. Got to go back to the fact that Eric was locking Mui up indoors on Ilias Lighthouse as well. So really look to see what he and Eric can do as a team here. Ting and Randy, they're not pushovers either, and Mui's going to go back on the tried and true. McCree absolutely is his best pick, but he hasn't really gone off just yet.
Out the gate. Pretty standard here for Hong Kong Attitude. They have had some success with this Doomfist McCree. The McDoomfist I think we settled on in the end for that one.
McDoom I like.
You like McDoom? I like McDoomfist. It just sounds more like a combo. I'll have a large McDoomfist, and there's the Mick part of that as he picks Rapid. Great quick headshot. It's going to completely open the way for this, and now the pressure can come out of Shaolin. They don't have to worry as much about that flank on Mui anymore, and he can just kind of sit pretty on this high ground. Now setting up on the point. What a flashbang fan to take out Dizzy as well, and he gets the kill credit for both of AHQ's DPSs. That is a very convincing attack out of Hong Kong Attitude.
Yeah, Mui's not quite done either. Wow, that is exactly what we expected out of this gentleman. What a string of kills. Hong Kong Attitude. Mui, where was this earlier? This is the man that's going to beat AHQ.
Yeah, I realized I misspoke. What I actually should have said was Mui. I regret saying that out loud, but you know what? It's now going to be immortalized on the internet. But Hong Kong Attitude now underway, and speaking of Mui, has the Deadeye so they can leverage that for a bit more space to play within the Streets phase.
Yeah, good early pressure from Hong Kong Attitude as well. The first ultimate's coming up online very quickly for themselves. AHQ have a little bit of a window here. I do have to consider, when does AHQ get aggressive? The flashbang this time around doesn't catch Dizzy.
I like how he said don't move, but actually Dizzy moves. Like, wow. What a rapscallion that Sombra. Already getting aggressive on AHQ on this high ground, and there's going to be the EMP commit, but look at Mui's positioning way back. Huge pressure out. Can't even do anything on the side here is Rapid, as the rest of the team just absolutely rolls through this one. Ting and Shaolin doing the damage. It's incredible.
And it just doesn't feel like there's been a real resistance from AHQ just yet. We did see the EMP come out, but just like Blank in the Audience series, where were the kills there? Where was the follow-up? Because Hong Kong Attitude had all the correct responses. The Deadeye came out to zone. He didn't pick up a kill, but the rest of Hong Kong Attitude do. And now the card is moving so far forward, AHQ, they're only going to get one more fight on B.
Yeah, it's like Hong Kong Attitude's members have been taking turns to be the one that wins the fight. First one was Mui, that one was definitely a Ting. Now I guess it's Shaolin's turn, but CQB does get picked. This is the window for AHQ. Eric's forced to Primal Rage, but at least will be able to Primal Rage, and in so doing is going to force Mango Jai and Mui well back. Forces out the Transcendence as those members rejoin their team, but that means they're able to actually rejoin the fight in earnest. Good self-destruct to kind of zone out a little as Rapid gets a pick on Randy, and AHQ start to open it up. They do lose Eric, and the Deadeye could be, excuse the pun, deadly. Does get the mech, but it's not going to get much more than that as Shaolin gets picked out, and actually it seems Hong Kong Attitude are going to go ahead and retreat to lick their wounds here.
Yeah, and AHQ did a great job of both dodging out their Deadeye and also holding onto the control over the card itself. They were able to trade picks, which is something so far on this Hollywood defense they weren't able to do. Now you're in a situation where Dizzy has EMP again. I'm expecting a lot more out of this EMP. AHQ are definitely far ahead in terms of economy.
Yeah, both teams just kind of traded punches for a while there with nothing much coming of it, but certainly the opportunity for AHQ to properly dig in their heels is there. Crappy does get picks. They have to get a lot out of this EMP, and actually he's kind of struggling to find the opportunity. Goes in on Mango Jai, converts one, but they're not going to get any more off it, so this is essentially an even fight now. Crappy will be able to rejoin quickly, though. Hong Kong Attitude going to take their time.
I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm not too sure if that was worth it, because you expect a bigger win out of AHQ off of the back of an EMP. One ultimate, one kill. I'm not too sure about that, because Mui doesn't need any ultimates for kills.
Yeah, Pulse Bomb goes wide as well, so he even takes an ultimate off the table for that as well, and they just open up the pressure. This is already looking extremely dominant out of them. By the way, great flashbang over the dumpster there to actually stop the reinforcement from Dizzy while he was taking out Hehe. So many McCrees would just go flashbang and try and headshot and miss it, and then the Diva remix or something crazy. Like, this guy is just on another level.
And by the way, while we've been talking about Mui, while we've been looking at him, Shaolin's been doing a ton of work on the backside as well. He's been securing kills into rocket punches. Anything Mui isn't shooting, Shaolin is.
And this is just... It's like, it sounds weird to say, but like, yeah, has been quietly punching people to death. As they go in now on Rapid, who is trying to get kind of around the backside. Mui getting topped off as he channels the Deadeye. Has got no targets for it, but he's happy to have created the space. Shaolin picks off Rapid, and now AHQ are horribly split as Eric and Hehe have to go into full retreat. Payload remains underway, and Hehe is on the complete wrong side of this as Shaolin is able to run rampant on the backside of AHQ, along with his buddy Ateng. The EMP finally comes out from Dizzy, along with the Transcendence from Keres, and it is going to give them a bit of room to breathe. Oh, and with that room to breathe, they're going to get a double will kill with the self-destruct, which should just be the stabilization.
And this is a good place for AHQ to actually hold because they lost a lot of time on A, they lost a lot of time on B. So to actually have the card stalled up so early on in C, this is so far them making up for all that lost time. And we're still in very early stages of this section so far. So this is still really defendable.
That was a really rough fight for AHQ as well. They were very much behind the 8 ball for most of it. They're going to have to kind of pull back and reposition a little bit here. Only just Remax Hehe had to reset his ultimate charge there. And Crappy as well making a change up. So they want to give Hong Kong Attitude some space while they charge ultimates.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going back to the Crappy Mercy again. This is very classical play from AHQ. And this is also an AHQ squad that likes to hold on to this Sombra on all parts of this map. So they're playing exactly how they did versus Ardian. Let's see if they get the exact same result versus Ardian.
That is a nice stick onto Randy, but he's able to recover and stay alive. Transcendence is there from Mango Jai for rescue as needed. So now Hong Kong Attitude have the ultimate advantage. No picks either side just yet, and Rez will now be a factor, but that's a great pick on the Dizzy. The question is, if you're Crappy, do you tempo Rez now? And indeed he does. They demech Randy to kind of make it worthwhile, but Hong Kong Attitude still had the ultimates to use. That's the Deadeye out. Great block by Hehe as the EMP came through. No follow-up on it just yet. Sound barrier to keep the team alive. Mui does get taken down, but they trade a couple in the form of Eric and Hehe. That's the open up now. All there is now to save AHQ is this Transcendence as Rapid and Dizzy are getting pressured out. Final sprint now for Hong Kong Attitude, and a Ting can trap in the base with this ultimate of his. There's the Transcendence onto the point, so he goes onto the remaining members to try and stop them from reinforcing. Gets Crappy in among that, and Shailin now going to take the fight to the point. Slam dunks Eric. Rapid does get the Pulse Bomb mech in the middle of that, but it is Shailin looking to close this one out. Does actually barely go down to Dizzy, but Dizzy dying instantly anyway, and Hong Kong Attitude will get themselves the cap.
And Ting did a great job at the end there as well. While Hong Kong Attitude were committing, Ting locked everyone from AHQ back in their base. So AHQ was split, 3 members stuck in spawn, 3 members trying to contest the cart. Hong Kong Attitude just took their time with the members on the cart, then turned to the spawners and closed out that map.
It seems this tactic of, fighting 3 members at a time has actually given a lot of teams a lot of successes in these areas where the defenders are very much favored. We're seeing it a lot more on Assault, but at Ting, you're quite right, pulling it off there with the base trap. And there was the Transcendence sitting on the point for Hong Kong Attitude as well, which was used to try and get all those members on quickly before that trap could go through. So credit to a Ting for pulling that off. And then once the Transcendence had run out, honestly, it was pretty smooth sailing from Hong Kong Attitude from there on.
And by the way, Hong Kong Attitude, you are starting to see exactly why we're onto Hollywood. They know how AHQ want to play this map. There's enough evidence out there, and AHQ are playing it exactly the same way they had against Ardian, which is very heavily relying on Dizzy defensively with that Sombra. So now you have a Hong Kong Attitude side that starts with the McCree and says, if you're going to play Sombra, we're going to find the Sombra, flashbang, headshot, that's how we're dealing with them.
Yeah, it's like either you can go all the way back to get the McCree and probably just lose your life, or you can try and get everyone else, knowing that the McCree is going to be well clear of your EMP, can still dish out damage, and will have a Deadeye that zones you from following up. They really are just, you kind of called it, they're neutering out what it is AHQ try and do with Dizzy on that Sombra pick.
And AHQ are very much a team, at least so far, that are quite... they're very stubborn on these picks, and it's kind of a good thing and a bad thing because you also don't want to be a team that switches too easily, but you don't want to be a team that is not going to switch if you are losing. And in this case, I would have preferred to see Dizzy onto something else, especially as we get into the streets and further, where the Sombra to me is less and less effective.
Now we're going to see Mui's own, Sombra as a counterpoint to Dizzy's. Dizzy not going to go into the McCree himself. They are going to be running a Doomfist and Tracer, so very vulnerable to that EMP, but a lot of damage up front.
Certainly, this should be in a very aggressive push from AHQ as well. You're not going to see any flashbang, no lightning from Mui this time around as he is on the Sombra instead.
There's the aggression out of AHQ, but they kind of don't cover their flanks. He gets demeched, and they pick Crappy. A Ting just going off on the backline. Suddenly Dizzy's very isolated. Will get a quick catch on CQB with that rocket punch, but he's instantly going to lose his life anyway. And Hong Kong Attitude will be able to get CQB back in the team before AHQ attack again.
It's a good rotation from Hong Kong Attitude because they let AHQ take the cafe. They didn't try and overextend and play inside the cafe. They let AHQ come out of the cafe first, play that choke instead. Dizzy missed his punch out of, he wanted to get a rocket punch out of the cafe door, ended up hitting a table instead, which completely stopped them up, and now we are seeing that change up, so I do like this from Dizzy.
We're already very close to this EMP. It will be a factor in this fight, and yeah, the change up is there. Crappy's going to go back onto that Mercy as well, like you said. Pick they're very much favoring right now.
They're looking for the damage boost onto the McCree as well. That's probably the opening that AHQ are looking for, but not mind that they are losing a lot of time here, and Mui will be the one going in because EMP is available.
Oh, that's a good pick on Mango. Jai Kerry is actually getting that one. This actually means that Hong Kong Attitude kind of have to commit, and they do so with the EMP. Quick pick on Carries and the closeout on Crappy as well. That's how you do it, folks. And a tick picking up one on Dizzy for good measure, and they absolutely do convert off the EMP. And you've got to say it, AHQ are having a very hard time cracking point A.
And that is the full wipe as well. By now, Hong Kong Attitude would have already rolled on into B. AHQ are using up a lot of time here. By the way, we didn't have a compositional swap from Crappy and Dizzy, so we're waiting for the new ultimates out. And speaking of ult economy, Hong Kong Attitude are just leading in a big way. Almost on 6. Mui just using EMP, already on the second EMP.
And that is the nature of EMP. I mean, once you get it going, it tends to keep going because, of course, after a fight happens, your health bars are low, you charge it up quickly because of the use of those hacked health packs. Pulse Bomb does go wide from Xiaolin. That is one less thing AHQ have to worry about, but they've still got 5 more ultimates to deal with.
Exactly, and those you do have to worry about because even if you somehow get in there, you have to consider that you're so far behind.
And there is the commit. Already a Ting is in place to follow up and instantly bops Crappy, who had that res as well, and it is just an absolute whitewash in the confined space. Did commit a self-destruct as well, which was potentially not necessary, but another closeout means AHQ are only just getting close to anything resembling equal ultimates.
And it's the same death trap that AHQ always fall pressure to. They keep backing off into this narrow doorway. They have nowhere else realistically to go anyway. In Hong Kong Attitude, get the exact initiate.
Wow.
Mango Jai taking down Crappy with the fireball as well. The good news for AHQ is they finally have ultimates above Hong Kong Attitude, but it's taken them 3 minutes to do that.
And if they have a repeat fight there where Crappy and Keras are the first to die, it's not going to matter that they have those ultimates. Saving grace is that Mui won't have an EMP to shut those two down, but they've still got a lot they have to fight through on the side of Hong Kong.
And Mui might just get an EMP if AHQ take any longer because another 15 seconds is gone and we haven't seen real movement yet from AHQ. They have this big ultimate advantage. The longer you wait, the longer you give for Hong Kong Attitude to build up their own.
Kerr is already forced to use the Transcendence as he was getting pressured out. Mui does not have the EMP, but he's holding tight on the side. Double support ultimates actually out of Hong Kong Attitude. Rapid gets picked, quick tempo res. Suddenly AHQ very lean for ultimates. Hong Kong Attitude can still convert as they pick Crappy, and Xiaolin closes out on Dizzy as well. Rapid has to use the Meteor Strike just to save his life. Tries to get Mango Chai in there, but completely misses it. Will get the one pick onto Xiaolin, but Xiaolin has already gone off picking all these supports. AHQ, Dizzy on now. This Tracer, is going to be absolutely booking it for the point, but it doesn't look like he's going to get there. Barely steps on it to force the overtime, and now they're going to fly in to try and reinforce. Ultimates for Hong Kong Attitude, but there's no backup now for these members of AHQ that have made it here. Eric gets picked, Crappy goes down, and the trickle kills have begun. Unless a miracle comes out of the likes of Dizzy here, it is going to be Hong Kong Attitude totally shutting out AHQ Esports Club on Hollywood.
Unfortunately for AHQ, Hong Kong Attitude just had their number. They've read every single play from AHQ. They had everything they needed to beat AHQ, and it is going to happen here. A final sound barrier from CQB just to sing the victory.
Style points indeed. And I said Hong Kong Attitude surely must have a plan for picking what has been such an AHQ favored map in the past. That was dominating. They barely got stopped up on Streets phase and absolutely shut AHQ out on the point A defense. That was the complete reverse of what we saw on Helios between these two teams, and we have a series on our hands.
Absolutely. This is now the peak of that Hong Kong Attitude roller coaster. We talk about the fact that the team has a lot of peaks and troughs. This is about the highest peak we've seen out of Hong Kong Attitude yet. So clean. This entire map was just all there. So I didn't see really that much contest from AHQ at all. Ilios, though, like you mentioned, a much different story.
That being said, that was Control, and now we are not, going back to Control at all. What we are getting is a lot more of what we just saw. We're going to get one half of it in the form of Assault, and we're going to get the other half of it in the form of Escort, and then we go back to Hybrid as well. And actually, we've already seen Hong Kong Attitude great on the mobile parts of the offense, which is going to be relevant on Escort, and great on the static parts of the defense, which is relevant for Assault. So as much as Ilios was quite one-sided in favor of AHQ, Hong Kong Attitude, I think, in terms of what they were able to do here in Hollywood, are now much better stood for the remainder of this series.
Absolutely. I think AHQ, you're right, we're dominant on Ilios, but the way Hong Kong Attitude were playing on Hollywood, in terms of how dominant they were, that definitely speaks a lot more into how they're going to go for the rest of the game, for the rest of the series as well. Not only that, but I think you have to read into the deeper strategy that went on for the Hollywood series in terms of the timing for some of the plays, the setups and the ult economy that they had there. A lot less of that goes into Control. Control is definitely more on the straight brawling, on the straight picks as well. So actually, when we talk about controlled meta gameplay, Honko Attitude came out on top.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's something that I feel they were doing quite consistently that I want to touch on, because we felt that Ardent actually do the same thing. I'm not trying to draw a direct comparison, but Hong Kong Attitude's execution was very, very fast, was very, very crisp and clean. And I say we see Ardent do a similar thing. You know, we see the EMPs that were coming out, right? The team was already set up. They didn't have to follow it up. They were already there. And from that point, it's actually close out, not follow up. And that was why Ating was able to get the play of the game he did. Let's go ahead and see some replays of potentially exactly that. And indeed, it is going to be that final hold for Hong Kong Attitude.
Now, this is when Hong Kong Attitude just sort of staggered. And Eric already used Primal Rage by now. It was actually Dizzy who managed to get the overtime over in the first place to really allow his team to come back in, but they just didn't have any win conditions. They didn't really have the ultimates. They had to use the ultimates just to get on the point and before they even start the fight. In fact, on the other side, you have Sound Barrier by CQB, you have Ating who used a Primal Rage earlier, the self-destruct from Randy as well. Everything Hong Kong Attitude had to complete that.
And what you also had in there as well, as much as at the very top of the fight, technically everyone was alive on both teams, actually Eric and Crappy were the only members of AHQ close to the point, and he had only just respawned. So all those other members that had to follow up Eric and Crappy did so without the protection of the Diva, which was something Shaolin especially was able to abuse. It's this thing I talk about a lot now of cutting off the column. Diva is the primary tool for protecting that column as it's moving with that defense matrix, especially against someone like a Tracer. And without that, they just weren't able to reinforce anywhere near safely. And that is already being on the back foot, by the way. At best, they were looking at a 5 versus 6 on the point.
Yeah, that was, by that point, I think it was already over. That was about, you're just heading into the overtime. He was demec'd, he was kind of staggered, killed even on top of that. So everything was just kind of falling apart. You really have to look at what led up to that, which is all the great EMP plays. You talk about the fact that the team not only just followed up, but they were already in position. Randy and Ating, everybody was just doing their job. And the best part was they were able to catch the EMP on the crucial members. Carries didn't get a good transcendence down. You stopped Crappy from getting the res as well because the EMP hit both.
Yeah, and the frequency of Crappy being shut down on that was pretty phenomenal as well. But with that Hong Kong Attitude on a dominant win on Hollywood, will tie up the series 1-1. We get ourselves a minimum of 4 games, and I think this is still easily going to a full 5 game.
Absolutely. Escort is coming up next. That goes back into AHQ land. They will get the pick. We'll find out what it is right after this break. Hello and welcome back to OPC Season 2. We're about to head into the third map of the series between AHQ versus Hong Kong Attitude in our second match of the evening so far, 1-1 in standings.
Yeah, in a way, I've kind of felt this is like the hot matchup of the evening. I've kind of already expressed the reasons. Part of it is that kind of rivalry aspect, but there is that storyline of Hong Kong Attitude really wanting to overcome their opponents here, and I believe that's actually AHQ's pick, by the way, given that we are on map 3 and they are the home side. But indeed, it is going to be Hanamura that is the pick there. And yeah, there it goes through, actually. AHQ home team picking Hanamura. Their series is currently tied 1-1. So this is both teams' opportunity to take the lead and look to make it match point.
And our first Hanamura so far, if I'm not mistaken, in OPC Season 2.
I think
no, we've seen one. Maybe we've seen one. But either way.
Yeah, I think we've seen it once, but only once.
But the thing about this map is AHQ definitely played this map quite well. This is one of their better assault maps, I would say, and for Flash Wolves as well, interestingly enough, one of their better assault maps. So for both of these teams, or for both of those teams, it's not a surprising pick. For Hong Kong Attitude, probably doesn't really make much of a difference. You probably associate Temple of Anubis more so with Hong Kong Attitude, but this is famously the map where they sealed that win against Blank Esports, the first time they beat them in Season 1.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. The other thing that's kind of a factor here that it'll factor into AHQ picking this map. It certainly won't be the be-all, end-all, given that this is a map they're good on. This is, not counting Horizon Lunar Colony, the map where you see the least Sombra, and Hong Kong Attitude are extremely comfortable with Sombra on Assault. So avoiding that isn't necessarily the reason for picking Hanamura, but it is kind of a blessing that comes with picking Hanamura, is you avoid Mango Jai's Sombra. But we have seen Hong Kong Attitude on Horizon Lunar Colony. We've seen them on Hanamura as well, and they can function pretty fine without the Sombra.
And so far, Dizzy's gone from being one of the players that flicks the least, being a soldier main through Season 1 to now being one of the players that flexes the most. And we've seen him on a bunch of different picks. And I'm kind of expecting a Widowmaker to come out on A if they're attacking first, because this is definitely one of the more friendly points where you do see a Widowmaker. And Dizzy, look, he just wants to play everything tonight.
Yeah. Dizzy's going to do like the full DPS run, like you play one of every single hero.
He's nearly there.
Yeah.
He's already done, he's done all of them except Genji so far. So, I mean, yeah, he's basically there.
Nearly. I kind of would actually like to see that. That'd be quite entertaining. Actually, has he done a Doomfist tonight?
Yes, he has.
No, you're quite right. It was Rapid was on the Tracer and Dizzy was on the Doomfist. So there you go. He's nearly made it. Maybe he will on his home city. Pick Genji.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to. I'm especially looking forward to the Tracer Soldier gameplay out of AHQ, because this is their standard. This is their bread and butter that they typically run. So we've seen a lot of non-Tracer Soldier gameplay, but this is what they're most famous for.
And we're even running it when they didn't have the same kind of Tracer Superstar in Rapid. And by the way, I say that this is the map where you see the least Sombra, but I tell you what, Mango Jai's going to go ahead and play it anyway, picking up that one big health pack pretty quick, smart. Already looking to get the setup play. Going to try and dislodge Crappy and Dizzy both.
Good defense.
But yeah, good defense indeed from both of those tanks as they force Randy out of the mech. He was not able to retreat to that health pack. And Mui actually getting a little bit aggressive on. They have to kind of wait here to get Randy's mech back. They can't really retreat.
And this is a problem for Hong Kong Attitude, because what do you do here? Do you try and go aggressive? Do you wait around? If you wait too long, you're losing objective time. You're not taking advantage of the fact that you have pushed now Dizzy out of his top perch. He's had to relocate, and Hong Kong Attitude just still waiting.
Yeah, because they did have to wait to get the mech back. Randy just about has it now, but in that time, AHQ got very close to some much-needed ultimates, like that Tactical Visor from Dizzy.
And EMP on the other side.
Actually, yeah, that will be a very big factor. Randy remakes, and instantly they EMP. They sniff out AHQ, getting aggressive, knock out Erican from the fight straight away. Tactical Visor will be available from Dizzy. They're trying to pressure him out, but picking off Xiaolin really stops a lot of the pressure that could potentially come onto him, so that Tactical Visor can still be a factor. He barely getting demagged, but they trade off for a Ting anyway. Mango, though, doing the work as he picks out Crappy, and Mui, great flashbang headshot onto Rapid there. Gonna look to close out on Hehe as well, and that Tactical Visor not really getting any targets here. No one indeed is in his sights as they send Eric back onto the point, but now Hong Kong Attitude had the ultimates banked up with that sound barrier to keep them alive through the rest of the fight. A boot kill onto Dizzy for good measure, and AHQ having a very tight hold on Hong Kong Attitude. Hong Kong Attitude kind of break out of it.
And Mui, that was so impressive and hilarious because Rapid had the nano boost on him, so instead of getting a flashbang headshot, you did a flashbang headshot into another headshot, and he did exactly that.
Yeah, like, that's a good point, actually, yeah. It's like, even more impressive than a flashbang headshot is getting 2 in that brief space. This is really quick aggression out of Hong Kong Attitude. They're trying to get a snowball off this if they can, and are trying to get Mui set up somewhere he can get a good Deadeye out, but actually AHQ not going to let it go over quite so easily.
Yeah, good fire nade is going to stop them up at least for the time being. So Kyrie's is doing a good job as well as the rest of the team. So it really does come down to the tanks controlling that space, not allowing Hong Kong Attitude to get into the top right area that they're so desperately looking for.
Rapid wrapping around the backside now to get the pulse bomb out. Now that the ultimates have been committed, that's a good stick, but it's well wide of Mui, who unfortunately gets nothing with the Deadeye, but they have picked off Dizzy. That's a bit of an opening for them, but they do still need to convert, and they're on the cusp of losing Mui, barely staying alive as they force the self-destruct from Hehe, who is going to be able to get back in the mech, and Rapid able to stay alive as well as they finally close out on Mui, and it looks like it's maybe just taken a bit too long for Hong Kong Attitude to convert. They're still committing more and more ultimates to this, but a Ting getting slept means they may not be able to get a third. He wasn't able to get as much pressure, rather, on the point that as he wanted, is the sentence there. They actually get a bunch of kills on the backside, but they probably still have to back off anyway, just based on how low
they look like they still want to commit because EMP's still available here. A bunch of members still caught on the cap, and now this is when they actually have to go away. Before, they had the option, should we stay, should we go? After the rest of the kills came in specifically from Dizzy, Hong Kong Attitude have that option taken away from them.
And I feel there was a moment's hesitation there as well. Perhaps would have just been safer to retreat when a Ting and Randy were getting low, but members like Mango Jai and Shylin sort of wanted to stay in, and they ended up giving up just a couple of extra kills on that.
And so far, AHQ are doing a good job of really denying Mui. They haven't really fallen prey to Deadeye. They haven't fallen prey to huge headshot plates either. It has been Dizzy and Rapid, making sure that everyone else on the Hong Kong Attitude side is being taken care of, and Mui isn't finding the targets that he was finding on A.
That is one very low Winston, but able to retreat safely. But that's the go button now for Hong Kong Attitude with the EMP and the Deadeye. But the Deadeye only finding Hehe's mech. They do get the closeout from that, and Randy zones out with the self-destruct. As the pick on Erican as well. Dizzy goes deep and will pick Mui, but they need to get a lot more than just that because this is now Hong Kong Attitude able to get a third. But Dizzy is doing the work. They finally close him out with Shylin, and surely this has got to be a third for them. But the reinforcements are still pouring out for Hong Kong Attitude, so AHQ rather. They just haven't quite got the full closeouts on all the kills they need at once. And the longer the fights go on, the more it favors AHQ because of that respawn. Now Hong Kong Attitude are having to commit more and more ultimates just so that they can try and get another shot at closing out a third. Shylin going down, and it seems that AHQ are starting to overcome the odds here a little and hold onto the defense once again.
And that was a desperation EMP as well. That was no way going to be very useful for allowing Hong Kong Attitude to win. Mango Jai got a little bit greedy there just to save his own life. And for AHQ, they held on to dear life, crapping with the sound barrier, despite it only going into 3 of the members, including himself, just gave AHQ enough time to get the full wave of respawns, eventually overwhelming Hong Kong Attitude, despite how far ahead Hong Kong Attitude were, and we don't have that 1/3 cap.
AHQ did a very clever micro thing there, by the way. They made sure that Hehe was the one who got the kill on Randy to get the extra bit of ult charge. So Hehe should be able to get back, was able to get back into the mech because of that. It was quite a cute little micro play.
Well, that's the kind of thing, right? Because you should be deciding that. And actually, interestingly enough, a lot of Lucios pick up the kill on staggered defenders for that exact reason.
Good flashbang on Dizzy, but wasn't quite able to close it out there. Swapping off the Sombra now, wanting to go on to the Zenyatta. Dizzy able to retreat to safety for now. Hong Kong Attitude have given themselves a bit of an opening, a bit of breathing space. Good pick onto Eric. Is going to queue out the opener, and Hehe forced to use the self-destruct, but they picked out Mango Jai. So far it is even trades, and Hong Kong Attitude again not quite getting ahead in the fight, at least certainly not enough to secure out a third of that point. And again, the dive in from Dizzy with the Meteor Strike. Looking to get Mui, it's going to come down to the wire, but there's the extra health. Actually, it goes 1 for 1 in the end, and neither is the one who kills the other. Rapid getting the kill on a Ting. It should again be AHQ holding on to point B.
And Hong Kong Attitude just not able to find the chain of kills that they need to really get this cap going. Mui every single time gets pressured up by Dizzy. Despite Dizzy not getting the kill some of the times with the Meteor Strike, Mui has to readjust. He loses the high ground positioning, and that's just as important.
You almost want to see them on the Soldier at this point. As much as Mui has had great success on the McCree, not just on Hanamura, but on today in general, with the positions he has been able to get, he could get a lot of impact done on that Soldier. But going for the same thing again is Hong Kong Attitude. Few more ultimates in the back pocket this time, and maybe this will be the one that they've been looking for. No picks just yet.
And by the way, Hong Kong Attitude have very rarely been able to get themselves a real establishment in terms of ult economy. AHQ have been keeping up, and in most cases, keeping themselves ahead as well as we're seeing now. Rapid getting the first kill of the Shaolin.
Yeah, they kind of baited Shaolin forward there. That was very sneaky. Mango as well committed a Transcendence in the middle of that. So now they're down in numbers and throwing away ultimates that they had taken so long to bank up. The kill on Mui as well is going to be another defense. Now Hong Kong Attitude probably only have time for one more fight after they've finished resetting from this one.
And it's going to be a big one because this is when they get 5 ultimates, and one of the few times in Hanamura so far, they're going to be very much surely ahead of AHQ in terms of economy. AHQ though, Dizzy, they're going to get that Meteor Strike again. Landing on top of Mui during a Deadeye is actually going to be very important. That might just kill Mui outright.
Certainly would be all they need. And indeed, Dizzy has come close before. Not quite during the Deadeye necessarily, but the effect he's had on Mui's ability to position has been profound. Now the final opportunity for Hong Kong Attitude. They go up the stairwell again. There's the Deadeye up from Mui and the Meteor Strike to try and counter it. Neither gets anything for it, but Mui's saved by that sound barrier. He is the first to lose his mech there. Dizzy getting picked off. This is what Hong Kong Attitude need, but they still need to get more. They close out on He, and that's what they've been looking for this whole time. Now can set up on the point and drew out the ultimates from Hong Kong Esports Club as well. Sorry, AHQ Esports Club. Why are these teams so difficult to say? And it's going to be the Transcendence for Mango Chai if they even need it, but it doesn't seem they do because AHQ are just staggering onto the point. There's the Transcendence to keep Mui safe on the high ground, and with that, he just rains fire from above. Self-destruct to come out from Randy for that extra bit of zoning, and they pick off Rapid as well. The full respawns in for AHQ, but the Deadeye picking out He before he remixed will be Hong Kong Attitude, finally closing out point B.
And in the overtime, nonetheless, as well. Well played by Disney to try and counter on Mui. He eventually got killed. I think the sound barrier that you mentioned was extremely important from CQB. The best part about Hong Kong Attitude's attack there was actually they managed to get away with only using 2 ultimates. They saved 3 after actually wiping AHQ. So when AHQ had the full wave of respawns, the next 3 ultimates came into play. Mango Joe with the Transcendence as well. It just seemed like AHQ didn't have the options because Hong Kong Attitude had set themselves up to win correctly.
I feel like these two teams should just fuse into one team called like Hong Kong Attitude Esports Club. Like Hong Kong HKAHQ.
AHQ Attitude Club.
AHQ. What does AHQ actually stand for? Because you could just sub out the A word for attitude. Esports Club.
I have no idea.
Hakar versus
Well, that's the thing is we don't know that it's actually an acronym, so
yeah, it could just be ARC Esports Club, and we've been saying it wrong the whole time.
Yeah.
Well, at any rate, that was the cap at long last for Hong Kong Attitude. No Esports Club in that title. Actually, they are owned by, I believe the group is called Hong Kong Esports, so it's just
I don't know about the club part, but
just to really throw a spanner in the works. But more importantly, they got the cap even though they struggled for quite a while, which is important in terms of kind of overcoming that defense, but they don't get any time in the time bank. And is this actually a Bastion?
That's a real Bastion.
Ain't one of the fake Bastions I've seen so much of.
Yeah, not the plushie you buy from the Blizzard store. But what I want to say is, I think that attack and the finishing of Camp B says more about AHQ actually, because you almost expected them, in fact you should have expected them to have that full holdout. They had such a good hold for the entire time, didn't let a single tick on going through, and then Hong Kong Attitude got it all in one push. This time around though, it's going to be Hong Kong Attitude defending.
So this is spicy. They're going for kind of like a turret and shield comp here with the Reinhardt Orisa and the Bastion.
It's like 3 turrets. You can't get more turrets.
Yeah, this is very, very all in.
Well,
by the way,
that would be more turrets.
Shaolin is also on the mercy here. So they've spotted this out now. They know what they're playing against. Instantly Rapid wants to change off. They need to honestly have a completely different setup out the gate, and I think Dizzy's going to swap into a Soldier as well. Nope, but still wants to.
I don't know that.
Just
I'm not too sure. He's still deciding. He's not quite too sure what's going on here, but there is. I kind of like the Widow because you can find a good angle here despite the amount of shields. There is only 2 shields. And
yes.
You know, okay, here's the thing. The actual counter here that AHQ need to go for, and I'm not joking, is a Mei, because you put up one good ice wall, you can completely out-rotate and out-maneuver Hong Kong Attitude's defense. And actually, one ice wall, I'm serious.
Actually, already they've out-rotated a lot of it. Mui wasn't able to get enough damage while AHQ were kind of making that move around, and now he's about to get outflanked. Shailen's gonna have to work overtime to keep him alive, and doesn't really have a safe place to stand. CQB trying to rain fire from the other side of this, but Shailen gonna get closed out on. That is exactly what AHQ needed. Now they need to still deal with these shields. The Reinhardt shield is almost completely out of the picture, and still no kills on the side of Hong Kong Attitude. Finally closing Eric as Mui sets back up, and he can block a lot of this out. They are going to need to fight on the point itself, and for now they're kind of backing off it as Rapid was able to pick CQB, who had the Molten Core up. This is still anyone's fight.
This defense is falling apart though, because by the way, the respawns favor AHQ. Dizzy now still set up. The more rotations happen from AHQ, the better Dizzy's angles are. So now Hong Kong Attitude, they're kind of stuck behind there. CQB the ultimate just so the turret can be upgraded.
Yeah, Molten Cord from the base just to buy them some breathing space. Now Mui's kind of ulting to do the same as Shailen again gets picked.
This
so
isn't
again,
getting kills.
Yeah, it's just not getting kills. They need to get a lot of work here done, and they're kind of struggling. That's going to be now a nano boost onto Mui. It's not paying off either. It's just getting blocked out by the defense matrix. Finally closing out on Eric as CQB again goes down. That's the sound barrier now. AHQ getting the pulse bomb onto the immobile Mui, and they will crack this egg.
I gotta say, that was well handled by AHQ Esports Club, because that would have been a very tough defense to crack for, I think, a lot of teams. You have to approach it quite slowly, quite methodical. How exactly are we going to get past this many shields, this many turrets? Out-rotating them was exactly the game plan. I actually mentioned, like, you could have gone for the main. That would have given you the wall to help you rotate, but they actually got the rotation anyway, giving Dizzy the sightlines, as mentioned. That was extremely important, and Eric got the first kill to Shailen. That's what started everything going.
A lot of ultimates did have to be committed, and Hong Kong Attitude did burn a lot of time out for AHQ. Still about 5 minutes left for AHQ, but no real major opportunity to snowball on this first attack.
Yeah, definitely not. They had to spend a lot, but getting good positioning here, picking up a couple of kills, maybe having some presence on point. This is as much an opportunity for AHQ to charge their ultimates as it is to actually attack the cap.
Rapid tried to go in for the quick melee kill on Shailen, but hadn't quite landed the shots he needed, and they're getting good pressure onto Dizzy. They're not quite giving him this positioning for free, but Mango getting picked off is an opportunity for AHQ to get set up, as Randy a little low as well. They're kind of struggling to keep these tanks topped off with just the one healer, and AHQ know it. They de-mech Randy, and they look to close out on a tank.
They got ults.
And now they've got the ults, and this is the pressure coming out. They can definitely play for a third. They can even play for more. That's going to be big aggression now out of Hong Kong Attitude with that Dragon Blade that instantly gets shut down. Eric gonna base trap the rest of these. That's 2/3 up. No one can get on the point from Hong Kong Attitude. 4 minutes 25 left on the clock. AHQ, they get themselves some time back.
This is so well handled by AHQ on all regards. I mean, defensively, they nearly had the full hold, and maybe they should have had the full hold. If that was the full hold, they would have already won that. I mean, Hong Kong Attitude only kept it into the overtime. We're going to go into time back now when AHQ is so favored, and rightly so. Yep. They played their attack extremely well, very methodical as mentioned. The defense also extremely methodical.
And you start to wonder, what's Hong Kong Attitude going to do on their second defense? Because they definitely can't try and pull the same trick again. As much as it left AHQ with only about a minute and a half left after capping that first point, they didn't actually hold it. Like, it doesn't matter how much time you run off the clock in a way on that first point, given that the second point can just kind of snowball the way it did for AHQ there. If they couldn't do it once, they definitely can't do a full hold with that team comp. So they're going to have to do it with something completely different.
It'll be interesting to see for sure. And for AHQ, just I really got to praise how reserved they were on that Cap B, because they, as you sort of mentioned, they didn't have the momentum. They couldn't snowball easily. They had to wait a little bit extra to get the ults, and they didn't pull the trigger until those ults came up online. And when they did, they had 4 all at the same time. The timing was perfect, and Hong Kong Attitude had nothing to play with.
And they are not going to do anything too strange on the defense. Just going to be running specifically Tracer McCree. Seems to be the order of the day for Hong Kong Attitude, but look at that, only a third needed for AHQ. Yeah, plenty of time to get it.
And more than 4 minutes to get a third, and I think for AHQ, they haven't really struggled on A all that much. In fact, I think AHQ struggled more with the standard composition that Hong Kong Attitude had, rather than, well, they already had one defense, but I think they should struggle more against the standard composition than they did against the mass turret they had before.
This is good aggression onto a Ting who's able to retreat. Randy, though, getting pressured out, loses the mech. That's a big one to open it out. But they trade back by getting Rapid. That is a saving grace for Hong Kong Attitude. Only a third needs to be capped, and AHQ know it. They want to keep this pressure up.
Might actually be able to catch Randy out here before Randy gets the mech. So if Randy
trying.
This is a big deal for Hong Kong Attitude because Shylin, or rather Rapid, already went down. So they had to wait for that reinforcement, and now we got a full reset. 6v6 again.
Yeah, Hong Kong Attitude just barely withering that storm. Mui nearly got picked in among that as well, and Randy nearly went down as he remeked. So now they have another opportunity. Dizzy is going to be on this McCree as well, and neither's had too much an effect just yet. As the fight out, oh, Shylin Pulse Bomb gets eaten there by the defense matrix. Hong Kong Attitude need to get a lot of work done. They have very little space to do it. AHQ can kind of take their time here still. No one dead just yet.
This is definitely favoring the Hong Kong Attitude because a minute plus has been bleeded off that time. The more time AHQ wastes here, the less time they have to play with. That sounds like a really obvious thing, but now
that's the aggression.
They're going to be responding.
Yeah, forces out the Transcendence, but they're happy to take that because that is the Nano Boost off the table. Deadeye out. Dizzy going down while channeling that is unfortunate. Mui didn't get much with his own though. AHQ committing ultimates to stay in this one. They know that the respawns favor them, but they're not actually getting the counter trades that they need in here. Shylin gets a pulse bomb onto carriers as well, and they're actually looking quite set to kind of close this one out again here, Hong Kong Attitude. AHQ slowly but surely getting beaten back and now looking very lean on ultimates for their next offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Dizzy changing onto the Widowmaker as well, so they need opportunity here. 2 minutes and 20. This is now starting to look like it's holdable by Hong Kong Attitude. It's absolutely possible that AHQ don't camp out. They need ultimate charge here. They lost a bunch of ultimates, and they don't have time to now recharge properly.
Dizzy's on the Widowmaker because they know that one good headshot pick could just win them the game, but already losing half their time, Hong Kong Attitude are putting up a very valiant defense.
Dizzy actually needs good angles here, and so far Hong Kong Attitude have been denying those. The rest of ASU should be using this time to get aggressive, should be using this time to take positioning away from Hong Kong Attitude, because Hong Kong Attitude already hiding in a corner.
The only tricky thing is it is effectively 5 versus 6, but now it's 5 versus 5, and Dizzy gets free sightlines. Randy D-Mech goes down to Dizzy, and that's those picks we were talking about. Very far behind now in terms of the numbers, and the respawns are closer for AHQ anyway. Crapper will get back long before any of these members of Hong Kong Attitude. Mui going down without being able to use the Deadeye. One of the few swing ultimates they had left in the back pocket, and a Ting getting picked. That's the third. AHQ going to push the series up 2-1 and take us to match point.
Absolutely well-constructed gameplay by AHQ. Look, at Hollywood was all Hong Kong Attitude, well played by them. They completely took about AHQ. This time around, it wasn't a dominant and a super dominant display by AHQ, but it was extremely well played in the sense of, look, they sort of strategically took apart Hong Kong Attitude in a very in-depth meta kind of way, which isn't something that Hong Kong Attitude did against AHQ. They just kind of stomped AHQ on Hollywood. So this is definitely, you know, I got to compliment this kind of gameplay a lot more.
Play of the game here was Rapid's play on point B on AHQ's offense, and he actually kind of was the reason they were able to close that out. I mean, on the whole, AHQ performed better across the board on that, held out on point B all the way up until the overtime. That's why Hong Kong Attitude didn't get themselves their own time bank offense. They did have a hard time cracking that point A both times for quite different reasons, but they got themselves to the position where all they needed to do was crack it once, and they had the time, they played with the time, and they executed very nicely.
And on top of that as well, you expect AHQ to have done even better because it looked like they were going to get the full hold onto B, and maybe they should have gotten the full hold onto B because it was 0% captured. Then suddenly, all in one push, Hong Kong Attitude had it all together. Now let's take a look at the score, 2-1. So far, Hong Kong Attitude now one behind from AHQ after losing Hanamura.
Yeah, and Hong Kong Attitude have normally been quite strong on Assault in general, but that Hanamura pick, and we talked about it when it came through, is a very good one for AHQ, and that just kind of showed at the end of the day. And it felt like, you know, Hong Kong Attitude's one of their best game modes, but on one of AHQ's best maps on that game mode. And the two just kind of cancelled each other out. It ended up being a pretty square fight that AHQ won, excuse the pun, fair and square. Going on to Escort next, though, is a bit of a different kettle of fish. I don't want to touch on it too much because there's still a bit more to say about this assault, but I'm kind of surprised because after Hollywood, where the point A defense had been phenomenal from Hong Kong Attitude and their own breaking of that point A had also been phenomenal, I'm surprised at how much they kind of got picked apart on this assault and how much they also struggled to take point B.
I also think AHQ Assault definitely favors them a lot more. Anyway, what I've sort of noticed here is on, I guess, the more mobile kind of maps, we look at Hybrid, and this is maybe part of the problem, is they haven't played around the card objective as a mobile objective, as well as they play around a static objective, which is why you look at maps like Control, you look at game modes like Assault, and they do look a lot better on that. So going into Escort, maybe Hong Kong Attitude is definitely favored just based on how the objective works.
Potentially, yeah. There's something I kind of want to pick up on in that Hanamura map, and it was this very, very, very small thing that was going on there. This is going to sound really strange, but I really didn't see Randy having much impact. You compare that to Hehe, especially when Hong Kong Attitude had the defense with that Bastion Torbjorn thing going on. Hehe was perfect at blocking damage when necessary, saved so many members with kind of juggling that defense matrix at all the right times. It was really, really great to see. And that is just one of the many uses of that DV utility. It's not one you use often because you don't see Bastion often, but he pulled it off constantly. Whereas my feeling about Randy was kind of, he always seemed to be on the cusp of getting demexed. Sometimes was having impact, but compared to what we actually saw on Hollywood, he really was spending a lot of time retreating and not actually shutting down the members of AHQ like Dizzy that he really wanted to be in the face of.
I think you're definitely right, especially onto Campe. That was the most prevalent examples of when you see Randy kind of getting demeched, and it wasn't even a case of Randy getting demeched and killed. Let's take a look at the replay now. Let's go into B already, and this is the final moments when Hong Kong Attitude actually kept on. And by the way, they're actually very far ahead in ultimates here. 4 ultimates about to hit on 5 as well. That's helped that. Rather, that Meteor Strike tried to cancel out Mui. It didn't really get the kill there. Dizzy got punished. He lost his mech as well. We talk about the effectiveness he has onto D.Va. That's taken out of the gameplay. 3 ultimates still available here for Hong Kong Attitude. It's no mistake they win this.
And it was this interesting situation. Hong Kong Attitude actually had the ultimate advantage anyway. AHQ's only real option was also the most dangerous option, and that was to send Dizzy and Eric onto the high ground to try and dislodge and deal with Mui. They failed to do so, and CQB had a really clutch sound barrier that was quite a big proponent of that. Then he also saw again just a moment ago in that replay, Mango then did the same with the Transcendence that saved Mui, and in committing resources to try and dislodge Mui, which AHQ had to do if they wanted to hold out, they also made themselves their most vulnerable they could be on that. So like, they didn't have another option. It was really just well played by Hong Kong Attitude to deal with that maneuver by AHQ and then also punish it. So really just nice attack and the overtime.
And probably the only time, or at least one of the few times, AHQ didn't get good counter trades or any counter trades whatsoever, because every other time, Hong Kong Attitude, they get some kills in there, AHQ, they trade back. Those trades always favor the defense due to respawns. This time around, they don't have the possibility of just getting the respawns out. We saw one of the other really critical times when it was only 3 members alive. Crappy got that sound barrier on 3 members that allowed the full wave of respawns. That really saved AHQ, but that was only because they had counter trades to start with. Now we're moving to Camp 4. Map has been revealed, and it is Dorado.
This is interesting, not unsurprising, but interesting. Dorado, we don't see Escort too much, just because, I mean, by nature, the series has to not be a 3-0 in order to get there. You are going to see it less than Control, Hybrid, and Assault, but Dorado tends to be the go-to for all teams. In terms of high momentum-based gameplay, I honestly think this is the strongest for Hong Kong Attitude, and we're probably going to see a lot of what we were seeing on their Streets phase of Hollywood on their attack. The question will be, actually, how do they handle the mobile defense? Because we didn't get to see that part of their gameplay on Hollywood, given that they full held AHQ.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, for Hong Kong Attitude, the fact that they pushed quite well, that also speaks to the ability, in my opinion, that they probably defend quite well as well. So this is a team that did had very good play on Hollywood, and I'm expecting a lot of their gameplay, a lot of the successes they found there to translate directly over to Dorado.
Last time we saw these guys actually play Dorado was in the Night Infamous series against Flash Wolves, where honestly some very suspect plays came out of both teams, but that's kind of what Hong Kong Attitude carry into this Dorado now. But already they are playing much more consistently and much more strongly, I feel, than in that series against Flash Wolves. So I expect to see a much cleaner game out of them. And certainly, I feel like this is actually Hong Kong Attitude's map to lose.
And certainly that would sort of fulfill the first prophecy, which is if AHQ win, I'm expecting a 3-1. Otherwise, it should be a 3-2 victory in Hong Kong Attitude's favor. But where exactly are we on that Hong Kong Attitude roller coaster? Have we peaked already? And that was on Hollywood. We dipped down onto the map, which is Hanamura. Are we going back up for another ride, or is this it?
a good question. Are we going back up for another ride?
Yeah.
You
get a round 2.
It's actually Hong Kong Amusement Park. That's what the A stands for.
Hong Kong Amusement Park, yeah.
I was trying to think of the A word that meant like a theme park. Finally remembered it.
I'm pretty sure there is a Disneyland in Hong Kong that, despite Hong Kong being this rather small island, you fit a whole Disneyland in there.
They still fit a Disneyland. That's pretty incredible. That's honestly, that says more about Disney than it does about Hong Kong.
That's impressive.
That's going to be as well Hong Kong attitude on the attack first. And this is one of the few situations we do not see the team picking the map opt for the defense. They're going to be running their own Mercy here, which is actually what AHQ have favored and indeed what AHQ are running.
Yep, certainly, and look to see who gets the first ultimate here. The first res could make all the difference, getting one good tempo res before the other team gets their res out. I think that's a winner.
Shaylin as well on the Doomfist could absolutely go off if he's able to get some good picks on the backline, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what he can do here. Maybe try to get the good pressure onto Crappy up on this high ground as well. No one dead just yet, but the payload's largely been moving. That's really what matters. Shaylin getting picked by Dizzy, though. It's going to be the kind of opening blow, and Dizzy not getting pressured too much here just yet.
And it's not AHQ going too heavy on this dive either. Crappy going down is a big mistake. That's a lot of the killing. Ability responds with a headshot of his own. Sorry.
Yeah, that's pretty fantastic, actually, to catch out Dizzy, because, like I said, he was uncontested on that high ground. That completely opens the way for Hong Kong attitude. Just as it seemed AHQ we're going to be able to kind of push them back and back and back. Actually, Hong Kong attitude kind of drew them just a little bit far forward. They do have the res and the opportunity to recontest though, AHQ.
And most importantly, that all happened before reses came out to play. So if it was a little bit later, Crappy would have had the res onto both, or rather Crappy died, so maybe not. And that's even more important. The fact that the Mercy went down first, I think, is what really seals the deal.
Hey, AVRL, you remember the Mercy meta where it was who reses first loses? We're going to see that a bit again, I think, and he gets demexed. That's the tempo res out of CQB to bring back Mui. Crappy holding on to his for now. Transcendence out, and I expect the res now from Crappy, but he's kind of getting zoned out. Goes in for the res, and there it is.
Doesn't get rapid.
Now, yeah, it doesn't get rapid. So the playing field isn't actually even, and actually Hong Kong attitude taking advantage of AHQ's split positioning and the kind of emergency res are going to get the follow-up kills off the back end. Force Eric out of the fight. Looking to get the follow-up as well. Nice closeout. That's going to be some staggered respawns for AHQ and high momentum streets phase.
And this is already looking like Hollywood all over again. A very, not much of a contest onto A, just a slow push on out. In fact, the only reason Hong Kong attitude didn't cap A out quicker is because you have to push the entire payload from spawn all the way to that cap. But the momentum here is really important. How do Hong Kong attitude carry this one through? The spawn camp is a big part of it.
What's like a Mexican version of Hollywood? Like how in India they got Bollywood? What would the Mexican one be?
Mollywood.
Mollywood. that's something quite different. Shaylin get a meteor strike back to safety on the payload, which by the way has remained underway even as Randy has lost his mech, and CQB closer to that res as well. But East AHQ, plenty of ultimates at their disposal.
They've definitely been saving, and they've staved off the spawn camp as well from the other side. CQB getting out with his life. I don't want to speak too soon because he might still die, but it does seem like he's not. That's very important. So they're not going to have the same sort of momentum where AHQ lost Crappy and Hong Kong attitude committed. They just don't get a chance to do that.
Randy was very close to remeching, which is actually unfortunate for Hong Kong attitude to kind of have him go down right at the end when they thought they'd steered through the worst of it, because it means a lot of time lost, and now AHQ are going to have the full six, the Christmas tree as you like to call it.
Well, this is now when AHQ really make their stand right, because Hong Kong attitude had some moments to really get good cart movement. They had the moment to trap AHQ in spawn and continue that momentum. That momentum is all gone now. That snowball is completely dissipated, and it's up to Hong Kong attitude to find the next opening. But where is that going to be? Because 6 ultimates almost online.
Yeah, they've really got to get a lot of value out of their res. They've got to draw a lot of ultimates out, and then also make sure Crappy doesn't get too much value out of his own.
We're still waiting here, and the longer we wait, the more it benefits AHQ. They're happy to wait because they're the ones in power.
Oh, that's a big commit. Crappy tempo res, so that's how they can rob him of the value as Dizzy channels the Deadeye. They trade back 1 for 2 as Movie takes out Dizzy with his own, but they are now lacking in Shaylin. Need to get a lot of work done. Tempo res now for CQB to bring back Shaylin, try and swing the fight in their favor with those DPSs as the Transcendence out for Keres, and on top of that, AHQ starts to convert. Mui really struggling to close out the kills with the pressure he is putting down, and Crappy keeping him topped up. Mui does finally thread the needle to get rapid, and they get Crappy as well. That's huge. Hong Kong attitude can now actually keep the momentum on their side as Randy able to remech off the back of that self-destruct, getting very aggressive now. trying to get the payload underway. Dizzy has reasserted himself on the high ground, though, and AHQ may just barely be able to stabilize off the back of that.
It feels so even because, you know, both teams just had equal trades here. That actually doesn't work well for AHQ, who had more ultimates. Despite being so far ahead economically, they actually have come out on top a lot more convincingly. This is Hong Kong Attitude getting a little bit more extra car push. I want to say they actually came out on top.
They did in a way, you're completely right, and now they need to have a repeat performance to really make it count. And that's the Deadeye from Mui, needing to get pretty big. A lot of them at least going to zone out. Doesn't get too much, but it does create some space. Self-destruct going in, and Carries did get picked and then rezzed as the self-destruct finds Mango. That's a good res though, as Dizzy goes down as well, and Hong Kong Attitude, he who rezzes second wins, means they're going to get the payload back underway. An earnest dive onto Carries by a Ting to zone him out. I mean, not that Carries is really going to contest the cart all that much, but trying to close out these last few kills to get the cap through. Looking to stagger AHQ as well. There can't be any kind of rescue res to come in from Crappy to keep the fight alive, and they may actually just have to cede this point altogether.
Well, Carries is coming in, and maybe not even with his own
Oh,
either.
what a flashbang! With the headshot to close it out as well, and yeah, with that Transcendence being committed as well. Now AHQ staggered and lean for ultimates. Crappy going down on the back end as well. Like I said, maybe they should have just ceded the point, and in not doing so, have given a lot of ultimate charge over to Hong Kong Attitude, who are committing a Deadeye for good measure, just so that they can make sure they get that point B secured.
Now, they still haven't actually capped yet, so there's a lot of time being wasted here. I think for AHQ Esports Club, that's still a pretty big advantage they can play with. The silver lining is the fact that Hong Kong Attitude only kept with 30 seconds remaining. They don't have a lot of time now to go in.
They don't have a lot of time, but they got the kills that counted off the back end of that, and that is going to give them even more momentum coming into this. And it's in these transition times, I feel, that Hong Kong Attitude have been getting the most momentum. AHQ need to find an answer, and they're now behind in the ult economy as they play compositional catch-up.
And I think with 1 minute 30 left to go, the res has to be what's most important for Hong Kong Attitude. If you get a good push in there, maybe you lose members, maybe you go even in terms of trades, but that res will be what wins you the game.
And there's a big pick onto Dizzy. CQB getting pressured, but it's not quite enough just yet. They need to get him dead. Oh my goodness, he takes out Eric and is going to be able to rejoin the fight now, getting the res in onto Mui, and that is what's going to count. That tempo is huge, and CQB not dying was absolutely massive. AHQ do still get a full run of respawns, but Hong Kong Attitude, they're still getting kills and still have momentum on their side.
And they've actually got ultimates online. The next one that's really important is actually Mango Jai's Transcendence. If the Transcendence comes online before we finish this game, I think Hong Kong Attitude can cap on out.
They're certainly not getting a res. Mui's channeling the Deadeye, doesn't get much with it, but Shylin picks Dizzy. That's the rest of the pressure that could go onto Mui. They do get him down with a pulse bomb, but Rapid needs to get a lot of work done. That's the Transcendence now from Carries, and Mango Jai will get his own, channels it out, and they've got more ultimates channeled already. A Ting finally converting with that Primal Rage to get Rapid, and they're trying to zone out the supports. Doesn't quite close on Crappy, and CQB gets picked. Mango Jai is forced way out of the fight, but they finally close on Crappy, struggling to get it over the line here, but Shylin popping off to get the kills. They lose Mango Jai, but they've still got the momentum on their side as Eric gets closed out on, and unless Rapid is going to find a hero play here on the payload itself, it's looking like Hong Kong Attitude may just be able to overcome AHQ, and with just enough time that it can go to Time Bank as well, they will cap the whole map.
9.9 seconds, just shy of hitting 10 seconds. And Shylin, you got to give it to the guy right at the end. He held his own. He was able to pick up the kills when he needed to. Mango Jai lived just long enough. He was on a teeter of health, got finished off, but CQB made it back into the fight. You never had a moment where both the supports of Hong Kong Attitude went down. Despite Mango Jai not having any impact at the end, he was able to get Harmony Orbs, still can get Discord Orbs. He can hide while that's still happening. He's still actually very useful, despite having no health.
That was really incredible. I will actually say it, Shylin wasn't just holding his own, he was holding everyone else's for them, right? He was, right when it seemed Hong Kong Attitude had lost a couple of critical members, he absolutely went off, getting like, I think 2 or 3 kills in a row to open the way. And even then, it wasn't a sure thing. They didn't get a closeout, but every time AHQ were about to stabilize, Shylin just kept shutting the door on them, keeping them just barely shy of holding the defense true.
And the first big play, actually, even before that happened, that kind of set the stage for Shylin to go off, is the fact that CQB killed Eric. Eric was trying to reload. I'm not too sure how much ammo he had, but he wanted to get the melee kill onto CQB. Because he didn't, CQB came down and res Mui. That kept both players alive. Otherwise, the situation would have been CQB dies, Mui dies, then it's a 4v6, and then suddenly it doesn't matter how well Shylin plays. Because all of that, the preparation and the groundwork was laid out, that allowed Hong Kong Attitude to win.
Never underestimate the Mercy sidearm, folks. Never underestimate it.
Especially when the new Mercy comes out.
Yeah.
Then you've got even less room to underestimate that.
Yeah, you get like the nano boost plus the Mercy ultimate. I'm looking forward to seeing those plays. Go on to like trolled in Overwatch. It's just going to be nothing but that for like the first week after New Mercy. But in any case,
it is
speaking
HQ,
of Mercy,
it is HQ, so you're still going to see a little bit more Mercy.
Yeah, exactly. And going to be running the Farah as well to just totally dislodge Hong Kong Attitude's defense on this high ground. But Dizzy's getting a little bit more pressure this time around. Hong Kong Attitude will cede a lot of space, though.
And the difference is because the tanks can't play aggressively as they would have liked to, they have to make sure the cart keeps going. That being said, Eric still makes a dive, still gives Dizzy the space, and Mui and the rest of his squad do back out. A little bit prematurely, in my opinion, but hey, that's how it works. The cart's about to go to the archway. This is actually very good movement from AHQ so far.
Yeah, they've given themselves the space that Farah kind of buys them. They've really taken advantage of it. Haven't got kills for it yet, but they're keeping the pressure on Hong Kong Attitude, who really need to deal with this. Oh my goodness, quick kill onto Mui. They trade back, but Dizzy is now totally unopposed without that hit scan on the ground, and it shows. Hong Kong Attitude actually getting a couple back, but Dizzy's still uncontested as he gets the damage on the backline. They finally close out on Crappy, actually, but the space is there anyway, and they have a rocket barrage to secure it if they desperately need.
And that's kind of the issue, because Hong Kong Attitude still managed to find picks, despite the fact that Mui went down early, despite the fact that no one was able to challenge Dizzy. But that's a big part. Because you can't challenge Dizzy, it almost doesn't matter. And now the cap-on comes through. You wonder how...
Oh, Mango!
You wonder how AHQ did so well onto Ilios. This is exactly how. Dizzy uses Eric, uses guys like Hehe as well to give him space, takes down Mui, and suddenly Hong Kong Attitude have no answer.
That was huge staggered respawns, and Rapid following up to kill Shylin. I'm not sure what Mango and Mui were doing anywhere near that payload, and it's totally costing them. Look at all the space AHQ have, and with the Sparrow having total dominance over the skies, this street space is almost a foregone conclusion now.
Exactly, because you've denied space, you've denied sightlines from Mui, so who's going to actually shoot down Dizzy? No one on Hong Kong Attitude can do that, except for Dizzy. At least the ultimates are online. This is the Jedi to try and counter him out.
Yeah, but already he's able to duck back into cover, as is Crappy. And even if he had gone down, by the way, Crappy has that tempo res. They really need to deal with Crappy first.
Good move by Tank.
Yeah, Hehe is absolutely pressuring out Mui. They're making sure he can't deal with Crappy. And no kills coming through. Shylin the first to go down with both those defensive ultimates used. AHQ have so much still left to use. And Mui's just having little to no impact here. He doesn't have much space to use. And with what little he has, he's getting nothing.
That's
Finally,
big.
self-destruct
No
to
res.
close out on Crappy. And yeah, no res means at last Mui can put the pressure on. Doesn't matter that Dizzy's still in the skies. They have finally found a point to slow up AHQ.
And this is kind of the tools that they had on Ilios as well that they didn't use. Where was the self-destruct on Ilios? This is what Randy needed to be doing on that map. Now he is on Dorado. Put the self-destruct out there. Get either the farm, either the fire or the mercy, preferably both, because you killed Crappy. It doesn't matter what the rest of the players are doing. No one else wants to commit ults in that situation, and suddenly they go down despite the fact they had 5 ultimates.
Hong Kong Attitude are actually recognizing that they badly need the damage boost on Mui to make it easier for him to convert the kills onto Crappy, and B, need their own res.
What was that?
That was an unfortunately whiffed Deadeye out of Mui as he was trying to move. That's a very unfortunate ultimate out of Dizzy, but the tempo res is there to come through quickly, and they closed out on Mui anyway. Good kill on Crappy, but they need to get a lot more than just that, and Rapid is still kind of dealing a lot of damage onto really all these members of Hong Kong Attitude, who are finally trying to stabilize by committing this Transcendence, but AHQ could just kind of bounce back, lick their wounds, and go in for another round.
Now, they're going to have to, at least. Well, the thing is, this time they've actually dropped the Mercy. Crappy's gone back on the Lucio. That kind of says to me, maybe Dizzy decides to go off the Pharaoh as well. So far, he's going to stay on this. I kind of expect a little bit more momentum out of AHQ, considering how many ultimates they actually use there. And now CQB is about to approach Riz.
I think they're valuing the speed boost out of Crappy to reinforce, given the positioning of the cart. And indeed, Mui already going down. Even a counter trade might not help them right now. They do close out on Eric, which is good news, but they lose Randy before he remexes, and AHQ again tempo on their side. Speaking of reinforce, they do close out on Dizzy, but they need to get their own reinforcements, and CQB tempo reses Mango Jai, but he might just lose his life, barely staying alive as Mui converts onto Rapid, but they need to stop the cart itself. Carries with the Transcendence to keep the team safe in that. They've just barely topped off their members now, Hong Kong Attitude, but they haven't actually closed out these kills just yet. Finally converting onto carries and will once again just barely beat back AHQ, but this is really becoming a game of inches.
And now AHQ is sort of struggling here because they changed a big part of the composition. Actually, what was working, they've kind of given that up. I'm a little bit surprised because they had this sort of thing going where Eric and he gave Dizzy so much space. Mui could never really challenge Dizzy in the skies, and now they're going for a completely different kind of composition that I don't know is working out the same way. And more importantly, they're very far behind in economy.
Very far behind in economy could be all that it takes to kind of close the game out on them. Mui as well has that Deadeye that he can now get a lot done with without that Pharah pressuring him out.
Actually needs a positioning though. He's still playing mainly on the ground. The tanks are always on top of it. Here comes the Deadeye.
There it goes. Needs to get something. Got a bit of zoning, kind of got the pressure off himself, and they actually used that to force out the self-destruct from Hehe. Eric dives in. He's waiting for the Primal Rage, just barely gets it in time. Hasn't actually had to use it. Finally goes ahead with it as Shylin converts onto carries. That is good for Hong Kong Attitude. The Transcendence has allowed them the space to convert kills. They actually drew out what few ultimates AHQ had to play with and are now looking very poised to fully hold on B.
Exactly, less than 1 minute remaining, still waiting for a round of ultimates coming out from AHQ. They're even now behind because they have to play into a Mercy res as well. There's so many factors still online for Hong Kong Attitude. We just used a Deadeye. Mui about to get Deadeye number 2. AHQ, this is definitely their last shot.
And they've got the tempo res as well that can come out from CQB, plus the respawn advantage. So AHQ kind of have to work double time here. You know, they've almost got to kill Hong Kong Attitude twice to make this a sure thing. Trying to get Dizzy set up on this high ground, but they have to as well respect Mui. Nearly have a tactical visor available though.
Yeah, they don't have enough time, but they also have to move quickly. Here come the ultimates, so if you were waiting for ultimates, you don't have to wait any longer.
Ooh.
Dodge the pulse bomb, that's
just barely.
Start.
And Mango goes down. Surely that's got to be a res. They need to get Mui back in the fight, but CQB can't get to it safely. Finally commits. Dizzy's on the low ground with the tactical visor, and no one's really dealing with him. They close out on a ting, much needed for them. Mui needs to get something done with the Deadeye. It's going to be Hehe that he gets, and they close out on Eric. Suddenly it's got to be all Dizzy. And like I said, the respawns will favor Hong Kong Attitude. That's the Deadeye to try and zone these last members, and can AHQ push it through? Dizzy does get Randy, but they lose Crappy, and trades just aren't good enough as Mui finds his counterpart. At long last, the enemy team's hit scan DPS, and Dizzy is dead to rights, and Hong Kong Attitude will win. Dorado tie up the series in convincing fashion, and we are going to that full 5 games.
And that was a much better performance from Hong Kong Attitude. You can see the mid-game adaptation as well. They actually shore up on the weaknesses that they had at various multiple stages. I kind of still have to question what AHQ were doing there when they changed the composition off of what was something that was working quite well onto something that had a lot less of a success rate, and especially then resetting the ultimates when actually they were still quite competitive in economy.
I would say I was actually struggling to pick which play of the game it might be, and it's indeed on their own attack, and now I know exactly which one it was. They got so much tempo off the back of that cap, and I think had it not been for that, probably wouldn't have got the full cap anyway. That was really, really intense all the way through, and I've got to agree with you there, AVRL. I'm surprised at the kind of compositional changes that happened for AHQ there, because they also happened kind of staggered. First, they swapped off the Mercy, which meant the Pharah wasn't going to have any support for that next fight anyway. It makes it quite hard to win. Then they swapped the Pharah onto the Soldier, which was obviously what they were wanting to maybe use for the final stage, but they hadn't actually capped out just yet and put themselves behind in the ult economy. I think, honestly, with maybe time for one more fight, they potentially could have actually still got it through on that team comp, but because they did it in the staggered way that they did, they ended up just losing a lot of time.
Absolutely. Now the scoreline 2-2 as previously mentioned, tying it up so far, and it's been AHQ, then Hong Kong Attitude, then AHQ, and then Hong Kong Attitude, and it will all come down to hybrid, and it's been competitive no matter which way you slice it, because both teams have had very good maps for themselves, and across all the maps, you have to sort of say, there has just been really good moments. Aside from maybe Ilios being more HQ favored, Hollywood definitely being Hong Kong Attitude favored, and then on Hanamura and Dorado, it was a little bit of both.
Now there is a real question that has to be asked here. First of all, I want to touch on something you said actually before we go into that. Take a look at some replays from Dorado. So this was Hong Kong Attitude's closeout on that third point here. And this really was so close. This is Shailin's first time of kind of going off. And you can see he's now the only DPS still in this fight for his team. Mango Jai is about to get very hard pressured out. And it's hard for Shailin to do anything while Keres' Transcendence is running. So Mango Jai buys them some time. They close out on Rapid, but the respawns are going to come in. Mui is still not back in this fight. They lose one of the healers. Mango Jai nearly loses his life. And then Shailin just starts to put on the work again as he goes off to close out on Hehe and Keres both. Gives them the space they need, and while Eric was actually closing out on Mango, suddenly there wasn't actually anyone dealing with Shailin. He really put the team on his back at more than one moment in that final push to the third point, because there was one just before that as well, where he'd done a very similar thing, kind of pulling out a triple kill that kept them in the fight.
Yeah, and I got to talk about supports because both the supports really played well. There's CQB, we already talked about that one, surviving against Eric and getting the kill into the res onto Mui, but also Mango Jai living when CQB was down. Having one support up and never having a situation where both supports were down together, that really made sure that the healing was still available for Hong Kong Attitude, which is important in overtime when the sustain really makes a big difference. And Mango Jai, despite not dying, sitting on about 25 HP, still can use a Harmony Orb, still can use a Discord Orb. He's still useful even if he's hiding.
Exactly, and he made sure to maintain that usefulness. It was really just a masterclass in Zenyatta play. Coming now into what was AHQ's point A cap, and this was just honestly Dizzy owning the skies all the way through. First on that kind of opening part and then into the courtyard here as well, into the town square as it were. It was just this total dominance, and this whole time they still had the rocket barrage to secure it if need be. I felt like they didn't actually need to use it when they did, but it wasn't a bad thing to do that anyway. And then what happened is Hong Kong Attitude committed in Mango Jai. So after this rocket barrage, they committed Mango Jai and Mui because Dizzy is dead, and those two then go down. There is this huge tempo swing for AHQ, and even though Dizzy had just died off the back of it, because Hong Kong Attitude lost members, he was able to re-establish that aerial superiority on Streets phase.
And the important thing to note there is he killed Mui first, and because Mui was down, no one was there to contest him. You actually see Hong Kong Attitude managing to get some good trades here. They had a player advantage at one point, but that player advantage doesn't count for anything if you can't take down Dizzy, which is the biggest threat in the sky, and he was able to get all the other trades no matter what. So for Hong Kong Attitude, they just didn't have the answer. And I got to credit the tanks, because the tanks, once again, Hehe and Eric gave Dizzy that space.
Yeah, so much pressure was being put onto Mui the whole way through. You're right, that's exactly why. I mean, you've got such a limited sightline on both the Pharah and the Mercy, and like ideally you just need free reign and open sky so that you can pick the Mercy and then the Pharah, which is a hard enough ask as it is, even harder with those tanks in your face.
Yeah, so that was the first sign that this was starting to work very well. And you got to go back to Li Jung as well, because this is what won them Li Jung on Lighthouse. The other part of it was they won with Widowmaker on Ruins, but how they won both was, once again, tanks creating space for Dizzy, denying space for Mui. Then you go into Dorado, the same sort of thing happens. It was so good up until they decided we don't want to play this anymore. Then they had the sort of staggered change, like you said. They didn't even change together, and suddenly all started to go downhill.
And it's not like they were holding on to a rocket barrage or something. Dizzy had about 25% when that first change came through. But in any case, this is Dizzy right at the end. And this is where AHQ kind of failed to get it over the line. Up until this point, it was actually going all right. CQB was only barely able to get the res off, and this is what I think cost them, is Dizzy committed to the low ground, because I think he was looking for CQB before the res came out. Because he wasn't able to get that and was then pressured off to the side, actually everyone on Hong Kong Attitude was safe from the tac visor and used that time to deal with those tanks. And that really started to show. From here on out, it is all just respawn advantages favoring Hong Kong Attitude and overwhelming numbers with AHQ out of resources.
And that's the thing about Tac Visor, right? Because usually, kind of like Jedi, people have to run. You don't want to be tanking a Tac Visor face up, even if you are a tank. So he went for a Ting first, and actually then he tried to get Shailin. If he got Shailin, then he goes back, maybe picks up Mui. But because Shailin outplayed him in a situation when Dizzy should have just killed him, Shailin had all the blinks, had all the recalls, had all the timings and all the position to completely juke around Dizzy, waste his time, completely nullify the effects of Tactical Visor. When Dizzy comes out, his team's dead.
And by the way, it had been Shaolin that had largely forced him off that high ground as well with the pulse bomb. Kind of put AHQ in this uncomfortable position where they had to move Dizzy and also commit with the tanks to get off that high ground. So tied up now the series, and well, you predicted that it was either going to be a 3-1 for AHQ or a full 5 and a Hong Kong Attitude win. So we're going to have to see if that prophecy comes true.
Absolutely, and one more map pick stands between both teams down at AHQ. We're going to get that final one. It is hybrid, and it will happen after this break. Thank you for sticking through that break with us as we're about to head into the 5th and final map of the series. AHQ Esports Club in Hong Kong Attitude, 2-2 now, and it's been going in sort of a fashion where one team wins one, the other team wins one, and back and forth and back and forth. See what happens.
I will say, actually, when Hong Kong Attitude played Flash Wolves, we had the same thing, only it was on the opponent's map pick that they were picking up their wins.
Yeah.
And then Flash Wolves turned that around on the 5th map to close it out. So maybe Hong Kong Attitude can do that here, but here we go. Kings Row is going to be the pick, and there's something I wanted to kind of touch on here, and that's this kind of put AHQ in an uncomfortable situation. You had predicted that it would be a Hong Kong Attitude win if it went to a full 5, and actually, by picking Hollywood and winning it, that was already off the table, and Hong Kong Attitude are looking strong on hybrid. So they've kind of had to go to King's Row here, which is very middle ground, neutral territory, as we often like to say. But in terms of game mode right now, I do feel like Hong Kong Attitude are on paper looking stronger here. So I kind of have to start agreeing with you here, AVRL, in that it does really feel like Hong Kong Attitude can close this out on this 5th game.
Well, it does seem to be that AHQ look much better on static game modes where the objective is static control, where the control point stays where it is, on Assault where the control point stays where it is, and then we get to something like Escort and Hybrid and there's a moving objective. That's when Hong Kong Attitude definitely look favored.
Absolutely, and that's evidenced by their performances both on Hollywood and on Dorado in both their own ability to attack with that mobile objective. They fully capped out both, and then also defend it, because on Hollywood, they first held AHQ at point A, and then on Dorado just of course, held them just before that second point could be capped out by AHQ. So Hong Kong Attitude, out and out looking favored to win. It is absolutely on AHQ Esports Club to turn that around and close this game out.
And even where AHQ have been successful, and that comes down to the pharmacy combo, I don't think this is the kind of map where you can really bring that out again. And I'm certainly not expecting it so for Hong Kong Attitude and AHQ in particular. What is AHQ now going to do? They have to go back to something more traditional. They've already tried Tracer and Soldier. That's been good, but is it good enough to dislodge Shailin's Tracer and dislodge Mui's McCree here?
One thing I will say though is AHQ have traditionally been very strong on defense on King's Row, especially with Dizzy on that Soldier. So I would very much like to see them running that, and I believe it is their pick. So I would be surprised if this isn't them on the defense with, indeed, Dizzy playing Soldier.
And Soldier Doomfist is actually another composition that they have been running as well. I feel like Rapid has been pretty effective on either. No surprise, crappy on the Mercy. Again, they're very much, they have a thing for running Mercies. I don't know that any other team does, but they do.
Hong Kong Attitude going to be going for a shield comp here with a Mercy of their own. And interestingly enough, going to be running an Ana, and AHQ actually not opting into an Ana, which is what we've tended to see so far on this King's Row defense. Rapid looking to get a sneaky pick on the back end of this team, but he's now been spotted out. No pick for him just yet, and will have to retreat.
And it's certainly going to be more difficult for Rapid to get those insta-kills. You can only get them onto either Mui or the support. The CQB is a little bit harder to lock down. And Mui, you can just flashbang. So Rapid, he has to take this a little bit more carefully. Can't be too aggressive here. AHQ do have to respect the space.
Hong Kong Attitude getting himself set up on this high ground. That's a lot of charge for Randy. That really has to be respected. And look at this, trying to force them back into this corridor, but that kind of favors Randy with that beam and the damage he can push out. So now Hong Kong Attitude have an opportunity to get aggressive.
And by the way, Randy, to memory, this is the Zarya that really put blank on its knees as well. So I'm interested to see exactly how he's going to play that against AHQ.
That's the aggression. That's a quick pick onto a Ting with the charge, sorry, onto Rapid with the charge from a Ting. That's the one that's going to open it up. Crappy's got the Riz though, and he goes right ahead with it, but a Ting, a lot of damage he can just kind of throw out, and already Crappy is dead. They close out on Shailin, and Dizzy has got this high ground, but he's not really able to get anything. What a sleep dart to shut that one out, and Hong Kong Attitude still plenty to go up here. Rapid does pick Mui though, so they need to find a good way to break it through. That's the tempo res out of CQB. Respawns favor Hong Kong Attitude, and now no res to keep Rapid back in this one, and he D-Max. They pick Randy, that is a saving grace, as he did have that Graviton Surge, but there's the Deadeye out from Mui to zone out these members, and they do get the respawn from Randy. Unless AHQ pull out a miracle contest at the last minute, it's looking like Hong Kong Attitude should be able to grab this.
As soon as Randy gets in there, I don't know that AHQ can hold on. The Graviton Surge, if nothing else, will be what secures his cap. A Crappy solo, yep, he's definitely gone.
Yeah, unfortunately drifting lazily down to the point and getting picked out. Rapid getting picked by a headshot as well. Mui really pulling his weight here. And actually with that, they've capped the point, they've scattered AHQ, and they've preserved the grab for a tempo fight around the bookstore.
Exactly, and it's going to be really huge because you can even nano a Ting here to get a lot of cleave damage inside the Graviton Surge. Everything looks pretty good here. And that looks pretty hilarious as well. Crappy just looked like a dainty butterfly floating to his demise.
Can't remember if that's Italian or Spanish. I think it's Italian. Every language seems to have a different word for butterfly. It's one of the few words where the Romance languages all have a different word.
Oh, look for this flank though from AHQ.
That's the Graviton though onto nobody, unfortunately. Actually, I think it was maybe just carries, and while that was happening, the backline was getting torn to bits, and now Rapid actually has free reign on this. That was a little bit spicy. Shaolin though picking up Crappy, and yeah, there is the raise. Comes straight in. That's great tempo for them, and suddenly they turn the tides off the back of that. Despite the unfortunately whiffed grab, he barely getting out with that mech is a real saving grace for him, and will actually be able to charge up.
2 in a row.
Yeah, that's 2 sleeps in a row, yeah. And now charging up the self-destruct is Hehe, but they get the pick on Dizzy to keep momentum on their side, Hong Kong Attitude.
That was well played by Hong Kong Attitude, all things considered. A little bit awkward with the Graviton Surge. Like you said, only caught 1 member. Randy doesn't like Omnix. It is King's Row, so I can't blame him. AHQ now, they're the next ones that are going to get this res.
And they've got some ultimates to really back this one up. That's going to be the nano boost onto Randy, who doesn't have a ton of charge, but he's throwing in the damage anyway. Shield out onto Hehe, self-destruct. No one's going to go down to that. The res is there, though, for Crappy, and that could be all they need. Dizzy as well, by the way, onto the Farah, going back to that.
He's got to make it work.
Yeah, really got to make it work. That's a good pulse bomb from Rapid to close out a Ting and CQB, and they didn't even need to use the tempo res to swing that fight. So Hong Kong Attitude finally getting repelled here, just shy of the second cap.
And that was a pretty big fight for AHQ, considering that Hong Kong Attitude actually have a couple ultimates here. Randy gets a kill on the other side, so maybe not so bad. This kill into Shailin is a little bit staggered. In fact, that's what I call staggered, the one onto Randy.
That's huge. Randy actually stayed in that fight a very long time, closing out Hehe, which I can certainly agree with, but yeah, that was really rough going down very late in that fight.
The good news here is that actually Dizzy dodges out a Ting really well. You can't get Earth Shattered if you're flying in the air. The Graviton Surge might not actually catch you.
Can't get Earth Shattered if you're not on the Earth.
That's true. It's not Air Shatter.
Air Shatter. That would be a really scary sounding ability, wouldn't it? Air Shatter. How does that even work? Like, how do you break air? I mean, I can understand breaking the ground. It's like you just crack it, but... Well, they've got the ultimates up, and yeah, you mentioned that Earth Shatter. There is still the Deadeye for Mui that can zone out Dizzy, but Crappy can kind of res it back in, and they may just need to go for that tempo res here, actually. They kind of want to wait for the respawn, but that's an opportunity for Hong Kong Attitude to kill Crappy. That's going to be the Deadeye after the res, and instantly Dizzy dies again, which forces out the Transcendence from Carries, just so that they can keep a horse in this race, but they're stuck in the grab as the Transcendence runs out. That is a punch on the ground on top of Carries and Crappy. Both CQB in for the tempo res, just so that they can close out this fight, and this is sure to be a second point cap for Hong Kong Attitude.
And now you're sort of at the space where you do feel like AHQ are forcing this composition to work. Yeah, it kind of does have its merits because you do dodge out a tank, but Mui played that situation so well. A headshot into the Deadeye, which counters out the res just because of where Dizzy physically died.
You're absolutely right there. He does have the rocket barrage, but he's got a lot to kind of get past with it. He is going to get shielded out. They don't have the defense matrix to block it, but he needs to get a lot of work done with it.
Absolutely. Still, this is ultimate advantage in the favor of AHQ. Nothing super impactful. I guess once Eric
looks for the rocket barrage,
want to go in.
That's a good way to go in. Catches Mui and is going to get a Ting through the shield as well. That was very nicely done. He saw the opportunity on the backside and no hesitation went in with the follow-up from Rapid. No res from CQB either. And they also stay ahead in the ultimate economy.
Well, the thing you have to remember is there's no Diva on the other side, so every rocket barrage is going to count for a lot more. Even if a Ting puts up a shield, the shield just doesn't eat that rocket barrage the same way a Matrix does. Now, Mui is going to go into the Widowmaker. This is his answer.
This is very, very strong on the defense right now for AHQ, but Hong Kong Attitude still plenty of resources to break it. That's a good pulse bomb into a Ting, and actually Randy is the one who gets closed out on by Hehe, and that as they pressure out Shailin as well. Hong Kong Attitude gonna have to take this one on the chin and back up. A Ting may not get out with his life, barely escapes, but Shailin not so lucky as Randy respawns to go onto that Diva.
And this is the most effective defense so far put up by AHQ Esports because the card is completely stopped up. It's starting to back up now, and Hong Kong Attitude don't even feel like they can get out of spawn. Mui, he's sniping from this far back. I mean, it feels like they're attacking second, not third.
It really does, at least for now. AHQ are going to have to respect that and give them some space. Mango Joe, that is a nice bio grenade, but they're already getting closed down, and that's going to be a forced tempo raise from CQB, and Crappy still holding on to his. As CQB is healing up Mango Jai while they're stuck in this room with an angry gorilla. They're barely staying alive, but already Mui is dead anyway. It doesn't matter that these supports are healing themselves up. They are not saving their teammates.
Yeah, and like the first part of Streets phase, not too much of a contest. A as well, not a lot happening there, but right now, at the early stages of C, it's all AHQ all the time, and the ultimates are coming back online again. Hong Kong Attitude so far behind.
Even if you don't get a cap on C, you want to get more progress distance-wise than this, given that you're about to be on the defense. That is a great rocket barrage to catch Shaolin, and they close out a Mango Jai as well. The sweep was nice, but they don't have a res of their own anymore. They're going to have to try and stay in this fight, but honestly, they're struggling to retreat without this mobility. Less than 30 seconds remaining, and they're going to be waiting for some very staggered respawns. CQB barely getting out.
This feels like time bank because you're going to be pushing the card into overtime. Even if you win this team fight, you're going to be playing at least another 2 team fights when then you cannot get off the card at all. When if you lose a single fight, that's it. You just don't cap.
Hong Kong Attitude, closest they're going to get to an even fight here, and the res is still a factor. In a sense, they have to win almost 3 fights if they're going to get it all the way to the end. Nano boost onto Mui, but the Transcendence is there from Keres, and there is still that res available as Shaolin is the first casualty of the fight. Mui nearly has the Deadeye, but doesn't necessarily have the position to use it. They kill Eric, but there can still be that res through as they lose a team. The Deadeye does not get anything as Mui gets pressured back. They're still not getting cart distance, and that's another... rocket barrage as they instantly res up Eric for tempo purposes. Hong Kong Attitude going to get completely beaten back. The cart, technically it's the maximum distance that counts, but it's sitting right on that point B that was capped so long ago now. And at last, AHQ have found a way to permanently stop Hong Kong Attitude's momentum.
You know what AHQ just did? They played Streets phase on hard mode. It's like Streets phase, but the attackers have a much better spawn than they usually do. And they fully defended Streets despite having the attackers with extremely favored respawns. I mean, most teams can't even defend Streets when it's a normal Streets phase, but to defend like that, that's unbelievable from AHQ.
And it's incredible how much Hong Kong Attitude seemed to be struggling with AHQ's team comp towards the end there. All of a sudden, it seems AHQ just figured out how to keep Mui on lockdown. He was not able to go off and have an impact the same way. Neither was Shaolin. And that whole time, I mean, how many fights was Crappy holding onto a res simply because they didn't need it? Look, this is still very holdable for Hong Kong Attitude, who, need I remind you, have first held AHQ earlier tonight on Hybrid and then held them before point B on Escort, but they did not get the full cap. This is very winnable for AHQ.
Absolutely, because they didn't get the full cap, that really speaks to them a little bit because we saw Hollywood and we saw Dorado and they were much better there. They did get the full caps, and this is the first time you look at a cart-based escort hybrid, whatever you kind of want to call it here. The point is mobile objectives, and they didn't finish it. And that's a big factor. This is the first time we're seeing it in the series.
Looking like they want to run the shield comp again on the defense. And you're quite right about Randy Zarya there. Ended up swapping off it towards the end because you kind of pointed it out. They really did actually need the defense matrix to block out the rocket barrage. But even then, was kind of struggling to get it done. Reinhardt's just counting out the beat.
I'll get us home safe.
And it did also look like Hong Kong Attitude was struggling to find the right composition because he had Mui, changed it from McCree onto Widowmaker, couldn't find the right sight lines, didn't have the pressure. Then he swaps back onto the McCree. And it has to come back down to the fact that his team just couldn't give him the sight lines he needed to make Widowmaker work.
And it's looking like AHQ going to go ahead and run this pharmacy again. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And it is really doing wonders against this Reinhardt comp. Great displacement onto a Ting. Just kind of get him free damage. A good defense barrier from Randy. That gives him a good amount of charge. They need to pressure out Dizzy.
And area control is the name of the game here for AHQ. They've done it so well previously. Just got to make sure Eric and he can create the space for Dizzy, and then suddenly you're in business.
That is a great comp to force back Shaolin, who's, the reload. Not quite able to close out the kill there and then. Dizzy's still not being contested though. Mui's not really getting the sight line.
Where is Mui?
Yeah, where is Mui indeed? In fact, all of Hong Kong Attitude are just kind of completely bumped off the point now, and now they're actually having to attack through this open ground. Mui gets closed out by Rapid, and it's CQB who gets the trade kill, but it's going to be Rapid getting back to the site much quicker than Mui, and still no one is contesting Dizzy, who is now on the cusp of a rocket barrage. That could be all they need to seal the deal on this first point attack.
And the problem is you have no one to contest him. Only Mui can contest him, and Mui's still trying to get back onto A. If any more kills happen, which it does, then Mui can't even save this.
There's a rocket barrage, but actually Crappy's dead, and he's nearly dead as well. Dizzy does need to respect how exposed he is when he stops for the rocket barrage, and Mui is getting back into it. Dizzy can't rocket barrage, he's too low. He doesn't get back in the room. Yeah, he needs heals, but Crappy was dead. instead he couldn't get them. And actually Hong Kong Attitude now have an opportunity to stabilize. If they can force back Eric, they do lose a Ting. Nothing else. They have forced a lot of time out here as the res comes through from Crappy. Hong Kong Attitude still trying so hard to hold this one out. This is still anyone's fight as Crappy does again. The rocket barrage could be all it takes. And indeed, no, it doesn't quite close anyone. Finally gets Shaolin, but he gets put to sleep. And they're all stuck in the grab. But where's the follow-up on the grab? They're all in the Winston shield. This is still anyone's fight, and it's still only point A with half the time off the clock. A Ting finally starting to go off. The self-destruct is there, but he'll be able to shield that one out for his team. Has an Earth Shatter that could seal it. They finally get the kill on Crappy. Looks like this is going to be a stabilization.
And this is where it gets really difficult for AHQ because you can't have Crappy going down all the time. You need Crappy to stick onto Dizzy so that Dizzy can get those extra damage on the rockets to keep him topped up as well. That all started to fall apart. As soon as Crappy died the first time, then Dizzy didn't know what to do. Does he try and stay? He's got no help to do that. Dizzy respawns, Crappy reses, carries, and Dizzy dies again.
We're now very much at the point where even a cap for AHQ would make for a very difficult street space. Mui nearly getting the close out there onto Keras, but not quite. A Ting kind of stuck in the middle of the fight here, looking for a good Earth Shatter. That's a decent one, gets He, and they're going to throw in the Nano Boost onto him as well, looking to close out on the Diva, but in that Shaolin did go down. They need to get a lot more than just that, but Eric is a lot more. Crappy goes down just shy of a res. That could have been a huge swing play, and now there's only going to be a minute remaining as AHQ have to wait for a full rack of respawn.
Exactly, they got to go for the full reset here. Last time they had an opportunity to go for a full reset where they should have taken it. They didn't. This time they don't want to go for the full reset because they had that res, but unfortunately Crappy going down at the wrong time. A good target selection from Hong Kong Attitude. Despite having no one to kill Dizzy, they're killing everyone else, especially Crappy.
This is a real opportunity for AHQ though. That's a great rocket barrage to close out on a Ting early. They've still got the res for tempo and the closer respawns. If they can't do it now, then they can never do it at all. But they're getting the kills on Shaolin, so it looks like they will do it, closing out on Randy as well. A lot of time lost on this point A, but it's looking like they might just crack it finally.
Without using very much either, just one rocket barrage, the best rocket barrage so far on this attack from Dizzy. The other ones he got slipped right away. And now the cart finally does move, but they lost so much time onto A. And actually, Hong Kong Attitude, a good B here, you're not even going to get to see. I think Hong Kong Attitude are very much risking a full hold.
They really, really are. There's so little time, and honestly, the Pharaoh does not get great sightlines on this particular street space. Still gets the aerial dominance, but it's just not as dangerous. Interestingly enough, Movie is going to be opting onto a Sombra here.
Yeah, the biggest thing is it's not so much the Pharaoh here, it's the fact that Crappy has been targeted. He probably needs to play a little bit safer here, make sure that he's further on the back line.
Good damage.
He's been the target every time.
Eric, the early pick. Crappy may just have to tempo res here. Actually opting to go and pick up Eric as the Graviton comes out, and that's the wipe they were looking for. Dizzy commits the rocket barrage, but it only gets 2, and they can't really follow up from it. Hong Kong Attitude will probably have to retreat like they would after this anyway. They will get some payload movement off the back of this, but Hong Kong Attitude have wasted a lot of AHQ's time and ultimates in this.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm not too sure if Dizzy should have committed the rocket barrage there. Good counter trades, and actually that favors Hong Kong Attitude, rather that favors AHQ just a little bit, just because their spawns are so much closer. This is going to force Hong Kong Attitude back, so at least for area control, that's a win for AHQ.
This is still so on a knife's edge. Hong Kong Attitude approaching the point where they want to hold out and fight until the end. If AHQ can get it past there, then it is looking good. But that's an Earth Shatter for He. Sound barrier to try and keep the team alive, but cancelled out by the EMP. And suddenly there's nothing they can really do to hold this fight out. Hong Kong Attitude throwing all the resources they have at that one, but they do get that initial hold. Probably still have to hold out for 1 or 2 more fights.
And this is going to be it because you've got double ultimates coming online for Hong Kong Attitude. Nothing really of note on AHQ side. Maybe a good res can really save them, but again, Crappy's got to live if you're going to make this one count. The window to approach here is outside of EMP. If there's no EMP, AHQ can do quite well.
What a fitting way for the series to end. These teams currently 2 for 2 in professional match records. About to be getting the EMP up in a short amount of time will be Mui. And whoever wins this is going to be ahead in that match record, as well as winning this game and getting ahead in the standings. Self-destruct out, doesn't quite catch anyone. Now there's going to be the self-destruct from Randy, barely getting back in the mech, and he kills Eric to kind of counter out the double that Dizzy gets, as Dizzy goes down. Res nearly from Crappy, you're quite right, but he's got to get it soon, and he won't be able to get Eric in it. And if he goes, it may not be worth it. He's going to have to tempo up Dizzy and Rapid just so that they've got DPS. But there's the EMP, and Crappy instantly goes down to the Meteor Strike, as does he. Hehe's match. And this could be it. It's the final fight for AHQ with only 10 seconds remaining. Dizzy's already picked, and Erica's going to be barreling towards the point, playing Pet Diva with their Hehe. Indeed, playing with their food here is Hong Kong Attitude. That's going to be the hold completed, just shy of Eric going down on this payload, with the Primal Rage to buy a little bit more time as the team is trying to make it happen, trying to keep it alive. But it is looking like it is all over for AHQ as the final members get closed out by the dynamic DPS duo of Hong Kong Attitude. Now 3 for 2, both in this series and in total professional series between these two teams. The culmination of what was brewing since halfway through Season 1, Hong Kong Attitude can finally push into the top 4.
What a win for Hong Kong Attitude. And once again, the guy you want to talk about is Shailen. He picked up the pace exactly when he needed to. You talk about Dorado, he was the guy you look out for. You talk about Kings Row now, right at the end, picked up a triple kill, completely secured the deal for his team.
And I'm not at all surprised to see Mui getting this play of the game here. That was another of his various shutdowns onto Crappy. He was absolutely on fire. There was the one patch on Dorado where we felt he was kind of struggling to go off, and even then, that was a game they were able to win. Hong Kong Attitude, they weren't going to let it go map for map. They get the 2 maps in a row at the back end of it and rightfully collect their handshakes against what is sure to be their long-time rivals in the OPC in AHQ Esports Club.
And you got to be happy about that match because it was so back and forth. Both teams played so well. There's something to take away for either side. And for AHQ, I feel like they were definitely back to the corner a lot more than Hong Kong Attitude. But Hong Kong Attitude really need to be able to address some things as well in terms of how they were dealing with their pharmacy. Towards the end, I think they found that answer, and deservedly so. They pick up that win 3-2 and in that final map as well.
That was a really beautifully played win for Hong Kong Attitude. And the match record says it all there. This is a team that is looking so much stronger on those momentum-based maps. And to that end, I'm really looking forward to seeing them play again against teams like Flash Wolves and Ardiant because of how strong that momentum-based gameplay was and their ability to kind of shut down AHQ's own momentum. And this is AHQ who are running a lot of tempo picks like that, Mercy.
Let's get straight into the replays here, not wasting any time. And this is going to be in the attack from, I believe it is Hong Kong Attitude.
Indeed it is, and you saw an interesting kind of grab on the side. So this was an interesting kind of fight, right? Because it looks like it's coming off about even, but the res had been in the pocket of CQB the whole time. They were waiting to close out on Crappy first, so that they didn't have to risk a counter res coming in if they didn't get enough mileage off the back of their own one. And because they waited that one out, they were able to totally run away with the fight off the back of this. So I say AHQ were running those kind of tempo picks. Actually, when Hong Kong Attitude started matching them with that Mercy, CQB was consistently getting more value than Crappy.
Absolutely, and that is, to me, is more to deal with the fact that it was members like Mui completely shutting down Crappy. Everyone was targeting Crappy. The target selection was good. The priority was good there. They just didn't have that impact from AHQ onto CQB the way it was the other way around.
Exactly, and I will grant you, it is difficult for AHQ to do that given the team comp they were running. The Pharah is a little bit unreliable at picking out the Mercy because of the kind of mobility the Mercy has. Very hard to predict the movement. You know, you fire off a rocket and suddenly they're kind of drifting from one teammate to the next, and it's hard as well for Rapid to do so when he's got so many other targets. But here was much further on in that Streets phase, and this was just the continued momentum. So the tempo res again has already come out for Crappy, and instantly Dizzy died off the back of it to a Deadeye. He was the only one who got brought up in that tempo res, and again you're going to see CQB just get more value. The tempo res onto Mui keeps their DPS in the fight. Dizzy's only just respawned, and it's just that consistent use of tempo to gain momentum, and vice versa, that CQB was showing an absolute mastery of.
Absolutely, but after that is when the tables turned very drastically.
Absolutely.
It was, you almost think of it as a spawn camp, but it's like a light spawn camp because you're not directly holding that spawn, but you're holding the first choke that no one ever successfully really holds in professional play. You just never really see that happen.
Not after it's been capped.
Not for that kind of duration either. You're so disadvantaged in terms of spawns that you will never get the reinforcements. Take a look at the next replay now. This is going to be the attack on through from AHQ on the other side. This is going to be the last one as well. Crappy should get the res right at the end here. Rocket Barrage comes in, gets the double kill, so they start pretty good. The turnaround does start to happen again. Look at Crappy, 93%. This is a very slow approach from him. and it should be a pretty big turnaround as well. Note that there's no more ultimate. CQB still holding onto a sound barrier. That just means they have so many more tools to use.
Yeah, so Crappy finally comes in with the res, but it completely gets countered out by the EMP, and honestly, Shylin and Mui can just still do way more. And this is the trade-off with Mercy, right? Sure, you can get big reses in, but in the time you're waiting to res, you are losing positioning. You res back into whatever position you were in when you died, which by the way, probably wasn't a favorable one because you died. That's why we see a lot more of these tempo reses over these really high, you know, we talk about the other being a value res, which is when you get like 3, 4, 5 members of your team in a single resurrection, which is what Crappy had to go for there because of the kills that had already come through so that they could overwhelm Hong Kong Attitude. But Hong Kong Attitude knew that, so they set themselves up such that when that res came through, they would instantly be able to pick off those members that came back up in the res that could have otherwise turned the tide in the favor of AH.
And that's a media strike from Shylin, and then the positioning as well to get the rocket punch directly into the wall. I mean, landing on top of Crappy, even if he does get the res, it just seems like AHQ not really pushing that and getting more value. They can't transfer that and convert it into further kills. They were just already on the back foot. The fact that they were waiting for that res, I think the timing was off. If the res came out a little bit earlier, in a circumstance where Crappy just built it faster, that would have been a different game. Player of the game now going over to Shylin, and it could have easily have gone to his Doom as well, to be honest.
Well, and it could have easily gone to Mui as well. It's really hard to pick it because actually both the DPSs of Hong Kong Attitude were shining, but I think the reason predominantly to give it to Shylin would have to be that closing stretch of Dorado, where about 3 times in a row, he honestly saved his team from the brink of having AHQ stabilize on that defense and push them back. Like, they would lose one support, he would suddenly get 2 or 3 kills. They would lose a couple of tanks, he'd suddenly get another 2 or 3 as the respawns came through for AHQ, was barely keeping his team in it, barely keeping the payload underway, and barely keeping himself alive, which is no mean feat on one squishy Tracer. Shylin, absolute masterclass towards the end.
Absolutely. I think, you know, some difficult moments there for Hong Kong Attitude overall, but when they really pulled out, it really showed. And Shylin, absolutely shining on top of that. If Hong Kong Attitude are winning, make sure that Shylin is on the spearhead, because he's one of the core reasons that Hong Kong Attitude are winning, if they are.
And I'm gonna go ahead and say it, that Hong Kong Attitude that we saw tonight, I feel could have beaten Flash Wolves in that best of 5 that they had played, because that was what you talked about in that Hong Kong Attitude roller coaster. I mean, tonight we had a bit of that in terms of the lost win kind of thing, but like I said, the ones they were winning were those mobile type game modes that they were winning very, very consistently, and they looked very, very strong.
All right, let's go to the post-match interview now with Mui.
是 HK 的 Mui。
好，我们刚刚在比赛中看到你们在花村是展示了独特的阵型避雷阵，你们是临时起意想要出奇招吗？还是其实你们平常就有在练
？So is that composition you ran on defense? Talk to me about it. So we have practiced it in scrims.
拖时间的啦，对。
So the main goal is there to stall for time.
好，那我想问，就是你每次玩牛仔开大绝都没有被对方打掉，是感觉被保护得很好。
When you use Deadeye, it seems like you weren't being counted. Do you feel like you were protected well?
对，我在开大的时候，通常都会叫队友，就是。
Yeah, I do communicate that, and we do have that sort of team play together to make sure I'm protected during the Deadeye.
那我把时间交给曹楠。
你好，我想要问一下哈，就是我们有在注意 OPC 联赛的话，就会注意到说你在前面的表现其实没有很亮眼。
So you didn't have a good performance at the start.
才能够这么快。
What did you feel like in the middle of the series that you changed around to have a really good performance later on?
夏日的时候是进 HK 的时候，我就是偏向就是我自己去抠。
So it feels like at the start of Hong Kong Attitude was a lot of my own calling.
很容易送到。
因为攻击手看到一个瞬间有机会就会上来。
对，然后之后的练习中就是改了，就是变了。
So it feels like after further practice.
顺从队友的。我懂。对，就是我们一起做同一件事。
It feels like our coordination and gameplay is better. So excuse me, the question was, how do you feel like you've improved over the course of OPC Season 1?
那第二个问题就是我想因为闪光抱歉说错，是你的害影玩得非常的出色。
So your Sombra looked pretty good tonight.
诀窍可以分享给想要玩好害影这个角色。
So do you have any tips for Sombra players?
害影主要它生存越久，它的能量就会一直来，所以。要玩汉影的话，一定要把自己的衍生技能跟就是用好，就是确保每一次有可以回去。
哦，了解。
So you have to have good ability usage. Make sure your health packs are hacked up and your translocators are put in the correct positions.
对。
哦，了解，好，谢谢。
好，我们再次恭喜 HK 获得本场比赛的胜利。
So that was Mui with the post-match interview. And Hong Kong Attitude, I think he's mentioned something important, which is at the start of Hong Kong Attitude, they obviously opened up with a loss in the middle of that. They had some very difficult stages where nearly got themselves a win against Flash Wolves, but not quite. And now this is the best Hong Kong Attitude we've seen so far. And Mui seems to think so as well.
Absolutely. After that assault on Hanamura, they were on match point, AHQ and Hong Kong Attitude. Absolutely no sweat there, man. Definitely not feeling the pressure, holding it down. And a well-earned win tonight. Like I said, kind of the culmination of what has been brewing since they first took down AHQ Esports Club halfway through Season 1.
And they've still got one more match to go as well because they have the other rivalry, Marchi Esports, they take on tomorrow. But before we get to tomorrow, we have one more match for this evening, and it is Flash Wolves and Mega Thunder. That happens after this break.